Good morning. It is 6:07. It is Thursday, November 7th, 2019. 44 degrees, overcast skies. Getting up to near 60 today, but we'll have a low of 33 tonight. But the bad news is we will have some rain. We'll get to that cloudy rain as we get later in the day. We'll tell you more about that as we proceed. Some of the headlines we're looking at this morning. We've got takeaways from the Westchester County election results. Indeed, one of them is the fact that Smith became the first Democrat to hold District 1 in 50 years, now having that huge majority the Democrats do in the county legislature. Preschool special education in New York State has misspent some $85 million, according to a report coming out of LOHA this morning. Now, New York has placed $82 million after 17 prisons closed. None of that money wasn't spent yet. And Westchester, here, a sale of the Vernon Hills Shopping Center in East Chester. Why? And the Rangers finally won a game. We'll be right back. Nothing like getting tongue-tied when you look at the headlines. Good morning, everybody. This is Radio Westchester, Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. We are the radio station at the station, the train station. We are broadcasting live this morning. Welcome to the program, and it's the day after the election. And as someone put it, there were no big marquee elections. You didn't have the governor or the county executive or congressmen or women, but you had a lot of important local stuff going on. There were no vote for president either. Still, after 2 years of blue wave victories, some viewed this year of a local town and city elections to be a test. After the election of Donald Trump sparked a backlash here in a decidedly Democratic county, Republicans saw big losses in 2017 and 18. With attention already turning to 2020, the GOP viewed this year as an opportunity to win in some targeted areas, according to LOHUB, while Democrats hope to continue to show the new level of engagement. Well, it was another good night for the Democrats with more than 2-to-1 active registration advantage over Republicans, and they continue to string election victories. You know about most of them. We will have some of those seat changes today. We will be talking at 8 o'clock with Martha Lopez, who took over District 1 here in New Rochelle. At 9 o'clock, Sean Patterson Howard, the mayor-elect of Mount Vernon. We'll be talking with Andy Spano about that this morning, John Bailey about that this morning. And to talk in general about all the wins for Democrats, George Latimer, the county executive, will be joining us at 7:20. So very interesting stuff all the way around. But again, one of the interesting items is up county a bit. A Democrat is set to take over District 1 on the Westchester County Board. Colin Smith, only the second Democrat in history to win in District 1. And Smith made his acceptance speech Tuesday night in Peekskill after beating out his Republican opponent, Frank Catalina, by nearly 1,000 votes. That's a lot for that level of election. The Peekskill City Council person stood shoulder to shoulder with the Democratic Peekskill mayor and 3 council persons who all won their races. Smith says his experience in City Hall and as a school board member helps him understand the issues impacting his district. Oh, in District 1, it includes Cortland, Peekskill, and Yorktown. It is 6:12. Some interesting stories this morning about money and how it's spent on the federal and the state level. And somehow I skipped this story in the headlines. As I said, I came out of the box this morning mumbling, which occasionally happens when you do morning broadcasting. Your tongue doesn't match your brain. But it's getting there. Again, welcome to the program. And if you're just joining us, it is 44 degrees. Right now, overcast, getting up to 58. We'll have a complete weather report for you in just a few minutes. Well, you will recall in February of 2019, or 17, pardon me, a high-priced Manhattan attorney, Stephen Robinson, was appointed by the U.S. District Court to serve as the federal court monitor in Westchester County's federal housing case. Well, there's not much going on. 32 months later, Robinson has yet to file a single report with the court, despite his assurances over the past year that his final report would be forthcoming. At least he hasn't charged Westchester for his lack of production, says the Journal News today. At the time of his appointment, Robinson pushed back against the cap of his fees, insisting he be paid $675 an hour, or half his regular rate of $13.50. That's a nice gig if you can get it. At the international law firm Oskald Alps, Mihar and Flom. That's a great firm, by the way. Robinson, who said he will charge Westchester for writing the report, has yet to bill for his work. And there are a lot of reasons for that. There is no new deadline, but it comes at a time, and we'll be asking George Latimer about this, when the county executive is promoting affordable housing policies, and he stepped up his promotion of that. You recall on November 1, Latimer announced that he'd added $20 million in funding for affordable housing in 2020 in the capital budget. And he noted that since he took office almost 2 years ago, 27 affordable units were completed and occupied. 465, though, are under construction, and another 502 have been approved. We'll ask George Latimer about that when he joins us in the 7 o'clock hour. Again, 614, infrastructure projects, money spent, things of that nature, all in the news today. This out of Lohud this morning from David Robinson. Dozens of little-known nonprofits and businesses misspent about $85 million of taxpayer money intended for preschool special education in New York over the past decade. From ineligible executive bonuses, this is no surprise though, and unqualified relatives on payrolls to secretive expenses with sketchy paper trails, the money flowed while some of New York's most vulnerable children struggled to access key education services. How does this happen? This story reads like a Sopranos episode. Much of the illicit spending went largely unchecked for years, only coming to light now as state regulators crack down on financial abuses at federal education programs, which are to support 79,000 children. We're going to focus on this story in depth a little later in this hour as we pass through 6:15 now. Meanwhile, regarding prisons, Governor Andrew Cuomo pledged $50 million to help communities deal with the closure of 7 prisons he shuttered in his first year in office, making good on a campaign pledge to lower the number of people incarcerated in the state. 3 years later, the state added another $32 million as the number of closed prisons, has now swelled to 17, and it's leaving upstate communities with hulking empty facilities and hundreds of lost jobs. But over the years, the money's gone largely unspent. A review of records by USA Today and the Lohud people. Of the 80 million pledged, 59 has been committed to projects, and only 39 has been, that's 39 million, been spent. More locally now, turning our attention to Eastchester and business there, the 5-building Vernon Hills Shopping Center, has been sold for $125 million to New York-based investor who lauded the strong demographics and income in the area. Smart is that investor. Vernon Hills is located at 70 White Plains Road, just south of Scarsdale, and spans 380,000 square feet. Vernon Hills was acquired by New York City-based investment firm Askenazi Acquisition Corp. The retail center was sold by a limited liability company. Let's take a quick look at sports. The New York Rangers finally won a game they actually, it's their third win in the last 4, but they took a bit of a spanking 2 nights ago from the lowly Ottawa Senators. But last night they won over the even lowlier Detroit Red Wings. Tony DeAngelo scored another goal, leading the Rangers to a 5-1 win over the Red Wings at Madison Square Garden, and they seem to have bounced back. The good news is 2 veterans, other good news, and they have like 7 21-year-olds on the team. It's like watching junior hockey or college hockey. In fact, college hockey teams tend to be older. Hendrik Lundqvist and Mark Stahl, 2 steady veterans and icons of the past decade, back in the lineup, helping them win. Let's take a look at some politics now on the national level as we pass through 618. The White House is beefing up its communication staff as it tries to grapple with an ongoing House impeachment investigation. Interesting story. It involves someone we know from our area, and that is Tony Saig. Pam Bondi, the former Attorney General of Florida, and Tony Saig, a former Treasury Department spokesman, are expected to join the White House communications team to work on, quote, proactive impeachment messaging and other special projects. So Tony, having been involved, also does some broadcasting here in our around our region. Tony now getting to work in the White House. One troubling story, the Trump White House, President Trump did ask Attorney General William Barr to declare what his interactions with the Ukraine were legal, and he refused to do that. Similarly, talking of the efforts that the White House is putting together to combat impeachment, a White House attack on Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, who has testified on the Ukraine call. It depends on innuendo to spread in dark corners of the internet. Imagine using the dark internet to ruin a patriot's reputation. That's how bare-knuckle politics has become. President Trump has used social media to frame his impeachment defense, torch inquisitors, and undermine key witnesses. This, though, in the New York Times today. Again, in the New York Times this morning, Mr. Trump asked the Attorney General to say that no laws were broken. He said no. The U.S. diplomat to the Ukraine, though, did say Giuliani led the push for investigations. Well, that's the opening of the news this morning. We've got a business news item for you that might be interesting. The marriage between T-Mobile and Sprint received the government's blessing. It will affect you, depending on what phones you have or what phones you wish to buy or what plan you're on. The FCC approved the telecom merger with a vote along party lines. The combined company will take on the name T-Mobile. Several states' attorneys general continue to contest the merger. Tesla is expanding into China as well. The automaker says it will double the number of its maintenance shops, add new charging ports, and spruce up showrooms across the country, all as its Shanghai plant nears opening. China is the biggest electric vehicle market in the world. And talking about Boeing, the great plane manufacturer that screwed up big time, though, Boeing will spend $1 billion on a pilot training program designed to reduce risks that contributed to two fatal 737 MAX crashes. The Global Aviation Safety Initiative is part of a huge push from Boeing to regain trust with the public, regulators, and traffic. And a little note about transportation today. Metro North, a federally mandated system aimed at making the trains safer, is now on almost the entire Hudson Line, 70%. They announced it yesterday, actually 2 days ago, that all the Hudson Line trains, including Amtrak and CSX, between Poughkeepsie and Marble Hill, are now operating on positive train control, and that makes it 90%. And that does include the Spooten-Duval curve, if I pronounce it right, or Dival curve, the site of the fatal 2013 derailment. And since we're entering the holiday season, and since we may indeed have some snow in the next day or so, Westchester County is now kicking off the annual holiday gift and toy drive. Westchester County is accepting new unwrapped toys and gifts for the holiday season. Since 2005, donations have been accepted to give to foster children in Westchester County. One day, we have to talk about foster children and foster care. And it's one of those little dirty things no one talks about, because a lot of people do it just for the money. You know, for them, children are commodity, like widgets. You know, kind of like the way some of the school unions turn our kids into widgets for their profit. All right, people can donate those toys, etc., by visiting collection bins located at the county office building or the Department of Social Services offices in the following cities: Mount Vernon, Peekskill, White Plains, and Yonkers. The drive runs through December 17. It's time to take a look at the weather report right now, and it is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. Last night, they celebrated their 100th year in service here in New Rochelle. It's 44 right now, overcast skies. We'll get up to near 58 today. That's probably the good news. And what they're saying, those rain late in the day. But tonight, mostly cloudy with a mix of snow and rain. The temperature will drop to 30 degrees. The wind will be out of the northwest, 10 to 20 miles an hour. Tomorrow, fortunately, mostly sunny skies. The temperature will be 38. We're all interested to see when that mix of snow and rain stops so that it doesn't affect the commute tomorrow. It may be too early to know that, but we will keep you informed. The wind will be out of the northwest, 15 to 25 miles per hour. That is Friday. Let's take a look at the weekend. Saturday, mostly sunny skies. The high 42. The overnight low 32. Sunny on Sunday, partly sunny. That is, high will be 52 as it warms up a bit. The overnight low 39 degrees. Now, many of you watching some of the national news broadcasts and the regional news broadcasts, you're probably seeing where, we're supposed to have this big cold snap. But so far, as we project the weather out here, even all the way out to next Thursday, we see, let me check that. On Wednesday, it's going to get down to 22, but they were talking like 0 degrees and 13 degrees and 10 degrees. It's not going to happen. We'll have one bad day where it gets down to 22, and that's not going to happen till next Thursday. Today's programs are supported by our friends at the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Pena and Khan, Dominic Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. We're going to open up the telephones in a moment to talk about, scams. And I mentioned to you, and the phone number is 914-222-3141. And when I say scams, this story that I set aside, preschool education in New York, how providers misspent $85 million and fueled an access crisis. One of the things that, and I don't put it in the top 10 enough, when I say top 10, because I've had two separate careers, it leads always to this question of, what have you learned? What's different about working in radio? And really the question is, what's different, or what did I learn, maybe that I wasn't quite aware of before I got to news? Well, there are several things. Number one still remains the king, the queen, if you will, of things I've learned is that, sadly, sometimes for good, but mostly for ill, it really is who you know. Getting the best jobs, having access to stuff, getting your story out there, it really is who you know. Whether it's, let's say, the one I always love since I've changed careers is the stories you'll get in the newspaper about, Belinda Saggiano is starting his second career baking cookies out of the basement, or another guy is selling postcards out of his garage. And sooner or later you learn that there was someone that knew someone in the newspaper. Because those of us who really changed careers, it's nothing like that. It is fun if you love what you're doing, but it is an agonizing, even if fun, an agonizing bit of going back to the bottom and working. But if you know someone, they'll do a story about it, even if you bake a cookie. Or the cognoscenti, those in power, people that run businesses, people that are in the arts, people that run radio stations, people that run TV stations. That's why you see so much get covered up, is they all tell one another's lies. They all pat one another on the back and enhance all their brands because they know one another, but their relationships are as superficial as toilet paper. Really interesting. So number one is who you know. and it affects so many different things, even getting out of tickets. If you want to get out of tickets, you actually get out of tickets more easily in the small police forces in the Tony cities because they know everybody. And if someone does something there, the police, rather than calling the press up and say, let's talk about the fact that Rich Johnny drove over or ran over Rich Joey, it's like hush, hush. So it really is who you know. And I suspect it's always been us, but it seems to be worse in the climate that has given us, the political climate that we live in today, the climate of businesses trying to rip you off, what Wall Street did 10 years ago, and so forth. That's number one. Number two, although one is picking up, the behavior of prosecutors. And we've talked about this with Mr. Duffy. And I understand to be a district attorney is a very sacred job and an important job, but they don't treat it sacredly. They all too often treat it as a political stepping stone. And all too often one observes when you do the news that they'd rather win their case than seek justice. They have it backwards. Yes, it's an adversarial system. They're supposed to they're supposed to win their case, but only if you got the goods. And that's why one of the laws, and most of them I'm not happy about the way they changed the bail laws, but one of the new laws that came out of the reform is that a prosecutor has to disclose the information that it has before it takes someone to trial. Secondarily, with prosecutors, there is no review for them. It's something that Jeff Deskovic, the great exoneree, who just, by the way, passed the bar, and we'll be talking with him again about that soon, is fighting for. Prosecutors, if they behave badly, if they break the rules, there's no real accountability for them. Now, what's been growing on the list, and boy, I better not appear in front of one very soon, and this is with all due respect to the wonderful judges that are out there, more and more, based on the decisions we see, particularly out of New York, but even in general, is the lack of judges, in many cases, taking their roles seriously, understanding how sacred it is, that you just don't let people walk because you see it every day. This isn't Sears. You're not selling washing machines. You're deciding the fate of people's lives. If you don't want to work late, if you don't want to work hard, now there are those, not necessarily me, that think if they wanted to work hard, they wouldn't become judges. And that's a little bit unfair, but there's truth in that. So judges have worked their way up on the list. Now, what keeps going up higher on my list is I was totally ignorant, and it took a local elected official, who I shall not name, it was on background, a long time ago, to point my nose in the direction of nonprofits, to point my nose in the direction of grants that the government gives, and how much corruption results in it. And it's a little skewed in the sense that most grants naturally go to the less fortunate or people that need help from the government. But on a lesser scale in terms of the events, but a broader scale in terms of how common it is when you watch one of these movies like Black Hawk Down or some other movie about how the government, we send money to governments to help the people and the government siphons it off. Well, what I've learned, sadly, is that a lot of nonprofits that they give to organizations in troubled communities, the money goes, as it says here, to special bonuses. It goes, and it's to buy votes too, but which is why they get it, because it's ostensibly it's helping out the black community, it's helping out this minority community, it's helping out the less fortunate, it's helping out the people that don't have a lot of money. And it happens in the rural white communities of the South as well. What I'm saying is that a lot of these nonprofits feather the nests of the people running it, feather the nests of their families, and a lot of, especially here in New York, you're always reading some Democrat in the Bronx or somewhere around those parts is going to jail for siphoning the money. They open up homes for the sick and the diseased. They open up homes for the aged, and they're pocketing a lot of the money. They're siphoning it off just the same way that Somalia was siphoning it off. And I always think back to the movie Black Hawk Down. And It's incredible how much this goes on. It's incredible how much gets siphoned off. That's why everyone who's starting, and it may be well-intentioned, it may be a great thing. That's why a lot of legislators will take a good look. It could be Black Lives Matter. It could be a preschool program, whatever the case may be. For real great intentions, always look at who's running it and see the financials. When we were covering all the events in Mount Vernon, what keeps coming up again and again and again in that city and other cities is the Urban Renewal Agency. I lost a lot of my respect. I was a big fan of the current controller, DiNapoli, until I covered the stories in Mount Vernon. Now, if he was the real deal, okay, but then again, he's the state. But if he was the real deal, rather than just politicking, he would have smacked somebody around in Mount Vernon a long time ago. He would have, because I've seen the memos. You know, everybody beats up on Richard Thomas, but I have seen the memos. I had the documents in my last job on my desk. The requests of the Attorney General to look into the controller, the requests of the Attorney General to look into the different agencies in that town. They came in. They spent 2 days. And they sent the mayor a memo, which I saw. Listen, we got to go. Something came up. Then the judge, again, the judges, when the controller in that city, and again, the jury's still out, hero or villain, we don't know, or just incompetent, we don't know. But what we do know is the judge ordered her to do something. She didn't do it. The mayor got stuck holding the bag. Now everybody throws mud at him. And so when you lose, when you leave office, when you do something that he did, like he used campaign finance money for his personal purpose, which is very common, and he got caught doing it and pled guilty to the misdemeanor. He'll be able to run for office again in a year. Don't be surprised if he comes back. So now everybody can throw mud at him. He's gone. You know, it's just like the guy who's not in the room we always blame for project problems and the jobs that we have. Well, at any rate, how all this ties into grants. Grants go to the UDA, not the UDA. IDA's just decision makers. That's a whole other issue. But urban renewal agencies, to bring this full cycle, what someone needs to do is get the books of every urban renewal agency, and I can see politicians now running to throw up in their bathrooms, in every urban renewal agency, and look who's getting the money, cui bono, who is benefiting. So there's preschool. I'm going to get deeper into the story now, and that was the point of this monologue. Listen up. Much of the illicit spending went largely unchecked for years. This is David Robinson. I got to get him on the show. For years, only coming to light now as state regulators. They finally cracked down on financial abuses at special education programs. What took you so long? 79,000 preschoolers were supposed to benefit from this. Yet despite improved oversight, the pattern of theft, mismanagement, and government waste continues to wreak untold damage on the lives of countless kids. At dozens of preschools, questionable financial reports led to criminal investigations of administrators, workers, and educational business owners. It doesn't say anything about the money going to the kids here. A review of records and state audits by USA Today noted this further. 11 preschool owners and workers stole millions of tax dollars through a variety of schemes, using it to pay for everything from diamonds and Costco shopping to home renovations and a family wedding, state documents. So now look, you run something. Occasionally, you use the wrong debit card, or you use. Oh, look, it happens. You write a journal entry and you show that you put the money back, or you show that it was an error, or you put the money in first because whatever reason, whatever little mistake you made. Journal entries, accountability. It's not there. The cost of it all, in many ways, is borne by 3- and 4-year-olds with varying developmental disabilities. And it impacts these kids. People and businesses caught stealing from preschool special ed have repaid some $19 million under court order. But this is the tip of the iceberg that is government grants. It's why, to give fair hearing, the Republicans are taking a beating these days, and they're taking a beating, and I'm not going to call them a criminal or anything. We'll just say because of the president's behavior and the reluctance of people that are in his party to call him out on it, which is just hurting the brand horribly. But traditional Republicans, they don't get enough credit because they despise this stuff. They know that they have to cut deals in the Congress and the Senate, and they have to set money aside because you have to give money to the less fortunate. We understand that. But if it's not getting to them, if it's being siphoned off by the people that run it, or the demagogues who use religion, race, illness, and every other reason to get a grant, and then they do it to feather their own nest. Now, look, you got to get paid. You're running the thing, of course. If I got a grant here for this radio station, I'd certainly still take my paycheck. Well, if I had one. But that'll come. But we needed to spend some time on this. We needed to beat this up. But whenever you hear the name Urban Renewal Agency, and I'm focusing on that, I would love to see an audit of the Urban Renewal Agency in Mount Vernon after all I saw there. And ostensibly, this is all ostensibly, depending on which of the mayors, and they have many over the summer, which of the mayors you talk to, there were giant loans given out for no interest, there's money missing, this administration did this with the money, that administration did that with the money. And the reason that they can do that, even though it's the Urban Renewal Agency, it doesn't report through the finance department per se, at least as I understand it. It goes directly to the mayor, so the comptroller can't, if the comptroller is doing their job, can't really provide oversight. See, it's a cool thing on one hand, for example, in Mount Vernon, that the comptroller is elected. But as a guy who comes from Wall Street and has worked with other executives in my life, the notion that an executive has no real control of a budget is antithetical to anything every executive and manager ever learned. Now, if you want to set up an auditing process, and we do that, for example, in financial services firms, you have a risk manager who doesn't generally report up to any line. And what I mean is any specific business, although in my company they did after they got comfortable. And it did hurt them. They got bought out, by the way. You need someone who is independent. But it doesn't mean they don't disclose. It doesn't mean they don't let you spend the money. They may stop you, in which case that should be a public matter. See, the funds, folks, it's your right. If a city is spending money, if the federal government is spending money, if an agency is spending your tax money, you've got every right to know how it gets spent. And this is why we need the Republican Party to resurge soon, because the liberal side of the fence, and while I may be socially liberal, economically, I want the people who need help to get help. But all this corruption and all this misspending and worse still, the incompetence of how much government waste goes on, because it's not their money. It's your money. And they spend your money. And they get votes using your money. Republicans, get your house in order. Do what you got to do with this president, even if you have to wait till he's done, because even if he hasn't committed a crime, even if he's doing good things that affect the economy, your party, his behavior, and we'll leave it at that, is destroying your party. When we have somebody like, it wasn't Jeff Sessions, I forget who it is, it may have been Jeff Sessions or another of the, I believe it was the other senator, Lindsey Graham. 2 weeks ago, he said, if there is quid pro quo, that is a problem. And now yesterday, when he found evidence that there was quid pro quo, which is fine because most of us in the callers we don't think that it's probably going to rise to the level of impeachment. And then he comes out and says, well, it's all baloney. No, it's not baloney. It may be pursued with great vigor and maybe even unfair focus. I don't believe so, but that may be the case. What do I know? But to deny that black is white, to deny that the sky is up there and the ground down here in the way that the Republican Party is doing on a national level, and the Democrats would do the same, I'm sure, if they were in that position, it's destroying the party, and we need the Republican Party, especially after seeing the schlumping they took yesterday in the local elections. All right, we're going to take a break, share the traffic and weather, and open up the phones. 222-3141, 222-3141. Coming up today, we'll talk with George Latimer at 7:20. We'll ask him about the affordable housing issue. That's another political football. John Bailey on the election. Martha Lopez, who unseated a 12-year incumbent here in New Rochelle, will be with us this morning. Andy Spano will have a lot of fun talking about that and the president. First person that we know who called for President Trump's, for him to win the election, who predicted that. And then Sean Patterson Howard, really making the biggest news. And hopefully she can make me sleep better at night about places like urban renewal agencies and money for preschoolers actually gets spent. You know, there's this, before I move on to the weather again, there is this sense, and I've heard it. So if you're wondering, well, what else in the news troubles you? A lot of elected officials or people who run for office, not all, I don't even think a large minority, but a minority, you will hear them say when they get elected, it's our turn to get paid. And they will be paid. And they will be paid with your money. Let's take a look at the weather. And the weather this morning is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And just last night here in New Rochelle, they celebrated, that is United Hebrew, their 100th year in business, if you will. The temperature, you may wonder why I look over my shoulder. It gets updated here on this screen. But right now it's 44 and overcast, getting up to 58 today, cloudy with rain late in the day. The temperature 55, mostly cloudy with a mix of snow and rain tonight. The temperature getting down to 30. It may evolve into some snow, but that's still kind of, well, the snow is up in the air, but so is the question of whether we'll get snow or rain later tonight. Mostly cloudy, mix of rain, and maybe some snow. Mostly sunny skies. Tomorrow, though, the temperature getting up to 38. The wind out of the northwest, 15 to 25 miles an hour. And I did miss that it'll be 30 degrees getting down to 30 tonight. And that's where the snow may come from, if it indeed turns to snow. Saturday, the weekend, mostly sunny skies. The high will be 42. The overnight low will be 32. Sunday, partly sunny. The high 52. The overnight low 39 degrees. And on Monday, mostly cloudy, the high 52, the overnight low 34. Now I'm going to look ahead to next Wednesday. We hear, and you'll be seeing on a lot of the national news broadcasts, they go out 2 weeks. There's a big frigid zone out in the middle of the country, lots of snow, and they say we'll get hit with some residuals of that. And it was going to be like 10 degrees, Armageddon, but now we'll just have one night or so where it gets down to 22, and that's a mixture of sun and clouds this coming Wednesday, a high of 37 degrees even on that day. This hour is brought to you by the Aging Issues Management Team, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Pena and Kahn. They'll soon be doing a show with us, by the way. Aging Issues Management already does. It's and Dominic Cigars, they're supporting us today, Plug-in Virtual Reality. A lot of the sponsors that we have and that are coming online after our grand opening, many of them will be, as you can do, enjoying a mix of sponsoring programs, but also producing their own programs. And we really look forward to that. And next week, we intend to, we already started now, we will be debuting, we don't have the day yet, we'll let you know maybe tomorrow, our first podhockey.com broadcast. And that's going to be pretty good. We're going to get a hold of some New Yorkers who made it to the NHL early on. and you may find that very, very interesting. So we'll do that next week. Right now, I want to turn our attention a little bit to New Rochelle. Everybody's taking a deep breath after the election. We now have a city council with only one Republican on it. That's probably not healthy. But a lot of people have allayed my fears. I'm someone who's always admired the intelligence of the mayor. But like any other mayor, sometimes he can be tough, and some even say ruthless and calculating. That's part of the job. And to that end, he likes it, as does any mayor, I'm sure. And this guy I like, by the way, but he's an elected official, and he's got to play the games, for good or ill. He has a couple of council people now, and I'm going to name them, Freed and Liz Freed and Sarah Kay, who we're not sure if they're just going to be rubber stamps. If they'll come on, we'll ask them, but only time will tell. But I think it was Mitch yesterday and some other folks have kind of put it to me, no, Bob, this is going to be a very different city council. Ms. Ramos Herbert, Martha Lopez, just elected. They have powerful constituencies, and they will be representing their constituencies and not always walking lockstep with the Democratic Party. And while that sometimes inhibits getting things done, it speaks to the issue that even we're having in the country right now. It's not supposed to be easy to get things done. Giving one person almost veto-proof power to do what he or she, that includes Mayor Bramson, to do what he or she wants to do is, generally speaking, efficient, okay, but unhealthy. You get majority rule, no minority rights, or you get something that even if everybody wants it, you get one man's take perhaps on how that's done. And that's a simplification, of course. But the point being that the people like Ms. Ramos Herbert, the people like Martha Lopez, they are going to have to, and we'll take this call right now. We got two calls. We'll take one first. They're going to have to, stand up and make sure that we don't have a one-man, one-party rule. Let's go to the telephone. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester. You're on the air.
Hey, Bobby, it's Anthony. How are you?
Hi, Anthony. What's going on?
It's going to be an interesting council because the councilwoman's elected in Districts 1 and 3. I don't want to say they're anti-development, but they're not rubber stamps for development.
Yeah, yes, you're right. Excuse me. Go ahead.
And that could make the lone Republican more powerful than anybody thinks, because anytime there's a supermajority needed, he could fall into play.
You're right. He could be like Kennedy was in the Supreme Court. He could be the real deciding vote. He can have a lot. You're right. He can have a lot of power. I didn't look at it that way. How concerned are you that we don't have more Republicans? We need more. What do
Bob,
we do?
let's be realistic. We're in a progressive state.
Yeah.
So it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's a matter of time. You get little pockets. You get Eastchester. Even Harrison, the race was a lot closer than it actually should have been.
It sure was.
Based on Belmont's record.
It sure was.
But people don't look at record. Okay. In the Garrity race, you had an incumbent that didn't run on his record. He just ran on the fact that his challenger was Trump-like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what New York and many other progressive states have come to.
It really is, as you can tell. It's troubling me. The center. I don't know if the center can hold. I mean, we're watching from afar, of course, New York City destroy its criminal justice system. I mean, it put in a couple of reforms that were needed. You can't keep a guy in jail for 6 months for having a marijuana cigarette. And prosecutors need to be accountable. But that aside, we can't be letting people out and then saying, we'll get you back in by giving you Met tickets. Am I nuts? That's what one party rule does.
Yeah, and you can't be closing prisons for no reason, just because there's too many people incarcerated. They're there for a reason. And I understand, the low-level crimes that was done.
Sure.
Nobody gave the president credit for that.
Well, that's very true. That's very true.
Okay, but just to close prisons, to say there's too many people in prison. Oh, wait a minute. First of all, a lot of these people have been in prison for a while. So do you have halfway programs to get them readjusted back into the community, to get them jobs? Because if you don't get them jobs, if you don't give them a place to live, if you don't find them a place to live, if you don't find a way to make them productive members of the community, you know where they're going to end up?
Back in prison.
Back in prison.
Well, again, you know what this speaks to too, and you may want to comment on this. We have the time. I did my monologue today on learning what the sad story of public grants and how much it really benefits the people running them more than the people that's supposed to get the money. I guess it's always been thus. And again, I won't name the public official, but he sat me down one day when I was new to this, and you probably know the person, and they asked me to take a look at this, and this public, whether they be urban renewal agencies. It's shocking, Anthony. It's shocking.
Yeah, Bob, you could look at IDAs also.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about the tax giveaways necessarily, even though that's number one. Let's look at the fact that they're supposed to create jobs. Those giveaways, those tax credits are based on a projected number of jobs, both part-time and full-time, and after the project is finished. Also based on retail. And there are no clawbacks if those benchmarks are not met.
And I don't mean to be doom and gloom. I'm trying to shed light on it so that people will be aware that this happens and maybe make these organizations a little more accountable. So where do you think the city's headed now with the city council? Do you think that some of the independents that won or were told they're independent, do you think they'll make a difference and, as you said, make the lone Republican have more clout and add a little more accountability?
I certainly wouldn't call them independent. I would say that they're Democratic, and the vast majority of the time they will vote with the Democratic majority. So I certainly wouldn't call them independent. Okay, but I will say it's not going to be what would we call a rubber stamp? Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Hey, do you have an opinion on the story we did? It was troubling that this guy who was supposed to put this report together on affordable housing, he hasn't written a sentence yet.
You can't figure it out?
With all the different stories, no. Honestly, I'm not figuring it out. Do you think he waited for a Democratic he's got a Democratic governor, or do you think that he'll get pushed back so he's avoiding it? I don't know.
I'm sure he had a report ready to go that was not totally favorable to Westchester because Astorino was in office at the time. But now that we have a change in the county exec, now that report has to be rewritten.
Well, you know what? For $600 an hour, I'd be riding my ass off. He gets $1,350. They'd have a report.
Yeah, well, there again, do you want to talk about these agents? And listen, the agencies, when they were first created, were well-intended.
Of course.
But like everything else, the human nature found a way to work the system.
Yes, but that's why I lost my faith in DiNapoli, and I used to have a lot of faith in him until I saw the memos. I had them on my desk, and I saw the pleas from Mount Vernon, the begging from the mayor, the pleading for help, the pleading for audits, and then he turns around and walks out. Like the maid in Jackie Gleason in The Honeymooners. She saw a mop and ran out of the kitchen. It was heartbreaking to see.
They're all white knights riding in on the white horse until they gain the position of power. Yeah,
we're really so. And but isn't it interesting too? Richard Thomas did what he did, and the things we're learning. How, not that he did it illegally, but because he had this relationship with the controller where she wouldn't approve anything, and maybe he was paying things he should not have. We don't know, but he used agencies to pay bills because he couldn't use her, and so now people are going to beat the living daylights out of him because he's not here. But it's gotten to the point where, hey, look, he resigned, and now it's easy to dump on him. It's a lousy system. Anyway, I think I lost Anthony, but that's okay. We got the phones open. He made his point. I certainly made mine. You make yours. Call us at 222-3141. We had a caller come in, and we had to take that call first. So please do give us a call. We see it. We see the number, but we're not going to call you back because maybe you don't want to be bothered, and we're not recognizing the number. But we had a caller call in at 6:50. Please do call back. We have the time. 914-222-3141. 914-222-3141. The top stories that we've been talking about this morning and that we were just referencing. Well, first of all, coming out of the election. See, I left it on loud so that I wouldn't mess up. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester. You're on the air. Thank you for calling.
Good morning, Bob. It's Lorraine Carr.
I thought it was you. I don't want to give out your phone number, though. All the men would be clawing at your house.
Oh, yeah, right.
What's going on?
There were two really good meetings last night. One was at the library, hosted by Barbara Davis, about our, history of New Rochelle and buildings that should be designated. What would you call it? You get a plaque that they are historical.
Oh, a historical designation is what you were looking for, me love.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. And it was presented by some company that City Hall hired. Well, it was like watching paint dry. Such a lackluster presentation.
Whose presentation was this?
I don't remember the name of the person, but they should have let Barbara Davis, present. Because, of course, she's very enthusiastic about what's going on.
Although, to be fair, sometimes you need a hook for Barbara.
I understand.
I mean, she can go on, but she knows her stuff.
She knows her stuff. And, I mean, this person could put you to sleep. I mean, it was...
Isn't that awful?
But it was hired by the not the planning board, the development department. And I said to them, tonight is also the first Board of Ed meeting where the superintendent was going to present. Could you please, in the future, look at the calendars around the city to see that you're not conflicts, And I was told, every night something's going on. So, all right.
Well, there is a little bit of truth to that. When I was at the chamber, I try and run a dinner. You didn't know that that there was 3 bugs coming to City Hall that night to talk about making honey? And I said, no, I didn't know. How the hell do I know?
Well, the school board has a calendar that's very available if you really want to do something.
No, that's because you're smart.
So then I had to drive over to Albert Leonard, and there was a presentation by the principal, and Isaac is going to have to present, and then the elementary school they're using to present is Webster, which I think is really wrong. I don't think that's the norm for New Rochelle. I think they should have used Trinity and Ward, because they're the biggest elementary schools, and see, their data. But I will ask the board after this. And then we hired a PR firm.
Well, there's been which group hired the PR firm? The school or the
Board of Ed?
I know that. Yes. What's his face is their rep?
We were not told the cost. We gathered that we cannot have everything that they've offered. The Board of Ed is picking 2 or 3 favorites, and then they'll decide on what they want them to do. People were shocked. They supposedly interviewed 25 people.
For what?
To find out what they think about the schools, because they put that on the slide presentation.
Oh, okay.
Now, where these 25 came from, nobody knows. Who they are, nobody knows. And, it was just like, here it is. We're voting on it. They're hired. So...
Okay, go back just a minute. Who got hired to do what? My brain is working slowly.
The PR firm, I really don't remember the name. It's probably on the website. Was hired by the Board of Ed to represent us, either website design. Something bad happens, that they're able to write something up that the Board of Ed could speak to the press about. And people are saying use this money for education, and then everything else will fall into place. But that's what they decided to
You know
do.
what it is?
But
It depends.
still, we don't know how much money it's going to cost.
They've had a PR firm. I don't
Yes,
know
they quit. They fired them.
They fired them already? When? The other day? This happened? How to happen?
No, they used to be on one of the commissions, one of the committees, and then all of a sudden they're not there anymore.
No, because the gentleman, I forget his name because I've got a senior moment here, but he used to be a writer for the Journal News.
Oh, no, he's still here. No.
Oh.
He's still there. They
Okay.
did not fire him. No,
Okay, they didn't fire
This
him.
is an outside agency that's
Well,
coming in.
you know what? For a while, they may well need that. But here's the problem with PR firms, and I work with them all the time because they pitch me guests.
Okay.
God, please forgive me for this. But truth isn't high on their agenda. And what I mean by...
I know. This is what the people realize. I mean, come on.
Now, again, the best PR firm, the most effective, will just polish the truth. But, like Sarah Palin famously said, you can't put lipstick on a pig. And
well, this is what I was going to say that, but...
you could have said it. You could have said it. I like to watch you put your lipstick on when you come in to visit us here. Lorraine is on the phone with us. She came in person. Was it yesterday or the day before? They were all
Yesterday, I believe. After the election.
How come you didn't come see me
And I
today?
just want you to know that there's a carriage waiting for the coronation.
Oh, you're starting this again. King Gnome. Dun, 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 dun,
Yes,
dun,
exactly.
dun, dun.
Exactly. So.
You're such a bad girl.
We'll wait and see.
How come you're not here? You didn't visit me today.
Because I heard you on the phone, and I decided, well, before I go to work, I'll call.
Oh, thank you. And you know what we just did? Do you have Alexa at home? One of those things. I think it's called Alexa, where you talk to it and you say, put this on. Well,
we have that in our car, and I have said to my husband, you trust her with the directions, okay? You've known me for over 50 years, and you don't listen to me as far as directions. So I want nothing
no
to
guy
do with that
does.
voice.
Let me tell you something. No man listens to his. And I'm not saying we're right. In fact, what I want to create this application on a cell phone that will save men breath everywhere on the planet. Will save you a breath, gentlemen. Or for those of you in same-sex marriages, whoever takes the role of not following directions, you press the button, and it says to your other half, "You're right, I'm sorry." You press another button, "Of course you're right." The third button, "I should have listened to you." The fourth button, "I'm just an idiot, I'm sorry." Wouldn't it make life easier for us? Sure.
I guess so.
Wouldn't you like to hear that one? I should have.
But you don't see them squirm. You don't see them.
Oh, you have to. So you have to see them squirm. Well, what if he presses the button and then he squirms and you see the sweat on his brow?
I'm a little sadistic like that. So.
I've noticed that as you've suggested with your King Gnome, King Gnome the first.
Or the Little Prince, whichever one.
Whoa! It's funny, and I shouldn't be laughing. But the Little Prince.
Well,
you remember?
I mean, he's a really nice guy and a great father and husband, I'm sure. But,
no, he is, and it's interesting.
Yes.
But you know what? But you should. We have to separate the people from the politics. It's like I told Al yesterday. I don't know if you were listening when Al Tarantino was on. Of course, I said it kiddingly. I really like Ron Belmont, but I'm not that familiar with his politics, good or ill or whatever. But I like him, and his politics is secondary. And I told Al, I said, I think you're a very good public servant. I said, but I hate your guts. So you got to separate the two. And I like that, and I've always been fond of the mayor, to the chagrin of some people who, because I've got good friends that are not big fans of the mayor, and they're always saying, "Why do you like him so much?" I like cerebral, I like smart, I like his, and if you really get to know the mayor a little bit, he really cares about people. He really cares about what's best for people. Now, I will. Let me finish. Let me finish.
Olive branch for him to include the rest of Nourishell.
Well, let me finish.
His Democratic Party and the
understood.
people that go around the community.
But let me finish.
Signatures.
I have said this to him when we did radio shows together in years past.
Yes.
He needs to suffer the people that disagree with him better than he does. And that might even be Lorraine Carl.
Exactly. I'm just applying for dog catcher, so We'll
Don't
see
give
how
me
that
a
goes.
lead like that, that you're applying for
What?
dog. You want to apply
No,
for
I'm not.
dog catcher? Lorraine, okay, how would you like it? You were coming on. And coming up next hour, we're going to talk with Lorraine Carl. She is the dog catcher here in New Rochelle.
Hey, look, you never know. You got to
Woof.
start someplace, right?
This is a bad pun, but do you like puns at all?
Yes, I do.
Good. It's a rough job. Well, I don't know. See, now you got me started. Christmas is coming. So where does Santa Claus keep his money? Come on, Lorraine.
Back pocket?
Snowbank.
Oh, God. All right. Enough.
Enough. I got more. Where do cows go for entertainment? The movies.
Oh, Lord.
All right, I better let you go before I make a fool.
The liberal, are talking about cows? We're doing away with cows.
Wait, no, I'm not. You hear me talk about schools. Does anything I say about the schools sound like I'm a liberal?
No.
See, so but I am a mixed bag, and I'm just afraid if you become a dog catcher, I'll wind up in a net. Nobody ever called me handsome. All right, thank you very much, Lorraine. It is
You're
always
welcome. Have a good day.
my best
Bye.
to you, hubby. Bye. This is Radio Westchester, and I'm getting myself deep into trouble. It's 7:08. Let's take a look at where we're headed. Coming up at 7:20, County Executive George Latimer will be talking about the Democratic victory. We'll also ask him about the story in the paper today that the affordable housing study has not been forthcoming for $600 an hour. I'll write all that they want. They should hire me. The guy normally gets $1,300 now. $1,300 an hour. I want to work overtime, time and a half, double time. Boy, I'll only be able to do 1 hour radio instead of thousands of hours of radio. All right, it's reset time as we head into a new hour. Let's see if the new music is a bit. Yeah, I like that. Da, 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 da. Oh no, I see snow in the forecast at 3 o'clock. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. It is 45 degrees. It's overcast on this Thursday. It is Thursday, November 7th, 2019. It's going to get up to 58, cloudy with rain late in the day. But I don't like that they had snowflakes mixed in with that. But we'll get to that in a little while. Anyway, some of the headlines we're looking at this morning for you. That federal housing monitor, Stephen Robinson, is struggling to complete the Westchester housing report. As you already know, the Democrats took 2 more seats in the county legislature, overturning a long-time, District 1 up near Peekskill. That's been Republican for 50 years now. It's Democrat as well. So we'll talk about that with the county executive, as well as some of the other races. Martha Lopez winning here in New Rochelle. In fact, he knows Martha Lopez. She works for the county. Sean Patterson Howard, the new mayor of Mount Vernon, or the mayor-elect as we speak. And New York's pledging $82 million after prisons close, although Latimer's got a county prison, so he doesn't have to really worry about that. We will be talking about those stories coming up. And the Rangers won a game. Not as much as the Islanders won 10 in a row. And tonight, Tom, one of our regular callers, is going out to he's going to Brooklyn to watch the Islanders who won 10 in a row. But he didn't take me. So I hope he doesn't have a good time. Let's get to those stories, and then we'll talk with George Latimer. We're going to start out with this. We'll be talking with George about the election, so we'll defer the election news. In February of 2019, high-priced Manhattan attorney Stephen Robinson was appointed by U.S. District Court Judge Denise Cote to serve as the federal court monitor in Westchester County's long-time federal housing case. 32 months later, Robinson has yet to file a single report with the federal court, despite his assurances that his final report would be forthcoming. He said that a year ago. At least he hasn't charged Westchester, though, for his lack of production. He gets $1,350 an hour, but he said he'd do it for half price, $675 an hour. I will write it for him for half that. Robinson, who said he will charge Westchester for writing it, has yet to bill for his work. As we said, he struggled to complete his assignment. Now, Robinson, who has just returned from his engagement looking at internal problems with a Venezuelan corporation, won't say when he'll get it done. He says, quote, I just want to get it right. Now, he did acknowledge in an August interview that he was having trouble discerning Westchester's compliance with the consent decree that settled the 2009 False Claims Act case, in which Westchester was found to have falsely certified that had, quote, affirmatively furthered fair housing, unquote, in the 2000s, while it took famously funds. Now, George Latimer, who'll be with us in about 8 minutes, has promoted affordable housing. On November 1, Latimer announced that he was adding $20 million in capital funding for affordable housing in the 2020 budget. So we'll see what he's prepared to do to get that report out and busy. And the subject of a broader monologue, but the instigator of that monologue this morning, the muse, if you will, this story. Dozens of little-known nonprofits and businesses misspent about $85 million of taxpayer money intended for preschool special ed in New York, this over the past decade. From ineligible executive bonuses, now listen to some of these, unqualified relatives working there, secretive expenses, sketchy paper trails. The money flowed while some of New York's most vulnerable children struggled to access key educational services. Much of the illicit spending went largely unchecked for years, only coming to light now as state regulators crack down on financial abuses at special education programs serving nearly 79,000 preschoolers. Yet despite improved oversight, the pattern of theft, mismanagement, and government waste continues to wreak untold damage on the lives of countless kids. Kudos to David Robinson from the Albany Bureau of LOHUD for that story. It is 7:13. One of the, we mentioned it going into the news, but this District 1, incredible that after only 2 Democrats have ever been elected in District 1, Colin Smith now the first after 50 years. The Vernon Hills Shopping Center, this is interesting. The 5-building Vernon Hills Shopping Center in Eastchester has been sold. This in LOHUD today. It's been sold for $125 million to a New York City-based investor who lauded the strong demographics and income in the area. You know, one of the things, and this, where we're not always fair enough to the development in the city because, of course, you never know anything for certain. But demographics drive business. The number of people, the foot traffic, the numbers of people that make X amount of dollars and have spending patterns and disposable income, that's when you get retail. No one comes in and puts up a store and say, build it and they will come. It's if they're there and they want to spend their money, then will come. That's why the hope for the development here in New Rochelle, which you didn't ask me, but in general, I support. If we get the people here, they need to buy things. Or at least hopefully they do. One school of thought says they just go back and forth to the city, but we shall see. Now, Vernon Hills is located at 700 White Plains Road, just south of Scarsdale, and spans a 380,000 square feet, acquired by New York City-based investment firm Ashkenazi Acquisition Corp. Now, the retail center itself was sold by a limited liability firm associated with the owner and developer, Bianco and Pepe of Scarsdale. So expect them to spruce that up. That will be good for all concerned, or at least we hope. The Rangers won. How about that? 5-1 last night. They beat the worst team in hockey, the Detroit Red Wings, the night before losing, or 2 nights before, losing to the second worst team in the National Hockey League. The winning goal scored by Mr. Tony D'Angelo, local guy. When I say local, he's from like Cherry Hill, New Jersey, around that area. Princeton, Cherry Hill, down between Central and South Central Jersey. A couple of business stories before we move on. The marriage between T-Mobile and Sprint, it got the government's okay yesterday. The FCC approved the telecom merger with a vote along party lines. The combined company will take on assume the name of T-Mobile. Several state attorneys general continue to contest the merger. I don't know. I've had Sprint and I've had T-Mobile. Now I'm with Verizon, and I have cursed, well, not so much at T-Mobile when it was just Sprint. Boy, I cursed and yelled and screamed at their virtual robot that used to talk to me. They gave her a name. I think Claire. Hi, it's Claire. Well, they did merge, and that is where we are on this Thursday, November 7th, 2019. Now, on a national level, there's a lot going on. What's interesting is the one ambassador or the diplomat who was in charge of Ukraine affairs. He changed his testimony. He said what he said behind closed doors was not quite true. And he says that there was quid pro quo. There was, it was very clear to him that the president, or rather not the president, but Giuliani and the people working for the president in that phone call did hold up money for information on Joe Biden. Now, the murky part is what went on underneath, how much Giuliani and those two thug-like creatures, or appear to be thug-like creatures, what they were up to. We don't really know. The point being, though, that clearly this stuff happened. Now, many, including myself, aren't sure it rises to the level of impeachment. I don't think that he's going to be taken out of office, even if he is impeached, if articles are drawn up. But these constant denials, and at least in my view, are hurting the Republican Party. Nonetheless, we even had the president yesterday request of the attorney general to declare that these issues were not illegal, and he refused to do that. So, bar not carrying water on that request. So we shall see where it all goes. I think the story within the story here, because it involves the president, it makes news always. But the story within the story is Giuliani's role. Doing as a fixer or doing the political work. Now, those of us who go back to Watergate know that there were always these shadowy figures in and around campaigns and presidents. And, you know, they broke into the campaign headquarters of the Democrats. It seems like small potatoes now, doesn't it? And they lied about it, and that really became the story. And then it turned out that there was a whole group called the Plumbers, made of nefarious people, ex-FBI agents, some who really played the game to the nth degree, like G. Gordon Liddy. G. Gordon Liddy was an interesting guy, for those of you who don't remember him. He was the guy, while they were trying to cover up the break-in and some of the other things that group called the Plumbers did, actually said, tell me what street corner to be on, and I'll be there, and you can shoot me. But later in life became a really great, still alive by the way, great talk show host who I got to meet several times. And a cornerstone, reasonable talk show host. So of course he was skewed right, but not insanely, not like Rush and Hannity are now, where they just play one side of the fence and even now fabricate stuff. He was to the right, but he always played with only the facts, and he separated his opinion from the facts. But what he cared about is both classic, and I mean it in the best of conservative senses, and liberal. His big raison d'etre on the radio was that colleges should teach people to be. Oh, look, there. I missed the. I'm sorry, I missed the county executive. There he is. That people should learn to think critically. All righty, we're going to go to the phone now. I missed his first call, but he called me back because he probably heard me waxing and waning. But nonetheless, to finish that point, G. Gordon Liddy was another mysterious guy. But when he did talk radio, his big thing was college should teach you to think critically, to question things. And got to meet him a few times. Very nice, interesting man. At any rate, a person on the telephone now as in effect, the titular leader, or not the party head, but as the highest level elected official in the county. He witnessed yesterday, or rather the night before, a pretty good day for the Democrats. We'll talk with him about that and affordable housing. Please welcome the County Executive, George Latimer. Good morning, County Executive.
Good morning, Bob. How are you this day?
Doing pretty well, all things considered. I don't want snow to come later in the week, but that's just because I'm a baby. Quite a night for the Democrats, and quite some interesting races.
Well, it was, and I think you have to look at it now as a 3-year reality, because in 2018, last year, Democrats won every contested race in Westchester County. In 2017, the year that I came in, we had what we thought was the record high watermark that we could achieve in the county legislature, going from to 13 legislators, Democratic and 4 Republican, and we picked up a lot of places that we didn't expect to get in 2017, places like Pound Ridge, Lewisboro, Bedford, I sound like a Metro-North conductor. Now, in 2019, this year, in 2019,
Oh, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
right, in 2019, we picked up 2 additional seats. Now, these are individuals running individual races. And no one in either party and any wildest imagination could imagine that Westchester would have 15 members of one political party in the county legislature for the next 2 years. But I have to be honest with you. I think there's a bunch of things to say, and I'll say them as quickly as I can.
Sure,
Number one,
we've got time.
we fielded some terrific candidates. The people went out there and worked very, very hard. It wasn't just put my name on the ballot and I'll go through the motions of it. Number two, we have had now the last 3 cycles, 17, 18, and 19, grassroots, door knocking like you can't believe. You just can't believe it. And credit the Indivisible movement.
Yes.
Credit our friends in labor. Credit our friends in the African American community. Credit the local Democratic committees, and in some sequence of events, the Indivisible movement, which includes organizations that aren't directly indivisible, but up to us in Newcastle and We Persist and Rye Brook, really went out and did what they used to do in the old days. Mr. O'Shaughnessy and the other radio station would always talk about, the good old days. And in the good old days, you had grassroots precinct captains, and they were all Republicans, and they went out and they knocked on doors and they got out to vote. Well, that's what you've had in the last 3 years. You've had a demographic change. More people who retire and those who pass on, have the traditional Republican affiliation in these areas, and they're replaced by people moving up from Manhattan who are Democrats, and they bring their sensitivity to local elections. When you see, Martha Lopez's victory, that is a victory of the rising Hispanic population in New Rochelle. Now, you had Roberta Lopez, who served on the council a number of years ago, but Martha's victory was amazing. It was a 2-1 victory.
Yeah, she's going to be with us at 8:00, by the way, this morning.
Yes, so I mean, and then you have a lot of new faces on the New Rochelle City Council, and Yadira and Sarah Kay and so forth. But then I have to say, in addition to all those things, I feel very sorry for friends of mine who are active Republicans, who are good, solid, conservative Republicans. I like them. We get along. I'm not talking about the ones who love to provoke you and love to say nasty things.
Sure.
They get a rise out of that. But I'm talking about people who hold conservative beliefs, and they're not the same as mine, but we talk with each other respectfully. Those people have lost seats through no fault of their own, because I'm going to call it just the way it is. Donald J. Trump is not popular in this area. People are angry with him, with his policies and his personality, and I think more with his personality than his policies.
Yeah, his behavior.
Some of his policies you could accept if you're middle of the road and even progressive on a couple of things. You can make an argument that our trade policies weren't good. You could argue that we need a big infrastructure bill, but his constant negativity, his shouting out on people, the way he does it, there's 25% of the population that love that. There are guys sitting in a bar 11 o'clock at night. I'm there too. I hear them, and they're peed off at the world, and Donald Trump is perfect for them. But that is not the majority of people.
Let me ask you a question, if I may. You mentioned the Indivisible Westchester group. Was it the evolution of Donald Trump, his election, and his behavior thereafter that gave them so much energy, or had that been brewing?
Yes. No, simply put, yes. I'll give you the personal example. In 2016, I ran a Senate race. Julie Killian was my opponent, very well-financed woman, a very real possibility of winning the race. And of course, I had been in for two terms and had worked hard because it was a tough seat to hold on to. You remember the Cohen race of 2012. And we had tremendous amount of volunteers in Larchmont, Mamaroneck, and Rye. And that came from my base of friends and support. I had a New Rochelle and Portchester, too, to be honest. So I had a good base. But I couldn't get a significant volunteer base in some of the other communities of the Senate district because they didn't know me personally. I hadn't been their assemblyman or county legislator. When the Indivisible movement came in early 17 as a reaction to Donald Trump, you had 400, 500 people in rooms, and there was a room in Bedford, there was a room in Larchmont, there was a room in Briarcliff Manor, all over the county, that people who otherwise they were progressive, they were Democrat, they voted that way. But all of a sudden they said, we're going to go out and we're going to work. And to be candid with you, my election for county executive was as much a part of that as any other thing. Everybody who knows me knows I work hard and I'm a decent fellow. You may not agree with my philosophy. You might want to argue with me over certain fine points of public policy. And all that's democracy. There's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. But all of a sudden, sort of the angry Tea Party movement was met in this area. I can't say in Alabama, but in this area was met by a group of people who said, "We're not going to tolerate that. We're not going to let you dominate everything. You're going to talk. It's going to only be your voice on talk radio. It's going to only be your voice on the internet. We're going to organize." And you watched, primarily women in their 30s and 40s who were smart, dedicated
I've
women.
observed that
and they
primarily women, CE.
Absolutely.
I just want to back up on something again. We're talking with George Latimer, County Executive here in Westchester. We're talking about the recent election. Now, you mentioned it a little bit, and I'm honestly glad you did, because I'm always concerned, and I had some calls this morning about it. We all need, for good government, a loyal opposition, and you rued the loss of some of that. It may make your job sometimes easier, but how healthy is that to have a one-sided legislature?
Here's the way I view it, and I'm going to, I usually don't blow smoke about myself, but in this case, I think I'm going to. I have treated the Republicans on the County Board of Legislators with respect and attention. And Gordon Burroughs now, who's leaving, and John Testa, who decided to retire. David Tubliolo and Margaret Kunzia, who are both coming back. I have treated them no differently than I've treated a Democratic legislator. When Margaret had a good idea, we passed it. When Gordon came to me and said, we need this benefit for this soccer group in Yonkers, we did it. When John Testa came and said, you're doing this for the Miller House in Washington, we got a Lincoln Museum, can you help us? I did it. And I didn't do it because of partisan, attitude about things. I am a Democrat. I support Democrats. Republicans support Republicans. None of those people would support me in a public election. But we work with each other respectfully. When I look at this 15-2 majority, I look at the 13-4 majority, and the honest reality is, on certain issues, a majority of people will vote a certain way. Some Democrats have broken on certain issues over time. Kitley Covell had a vote that she took with the Republicans that cost her union support. So, but nobody punished anybody for not voting in line. We don't roll that way. So, under normal circumstances, yes, a vibrant two-party system is the best protection of democracy. However, it's one of the best protections of democracy, a two-party system. But both parties have to be engaged in speaking honestly within their philosophy and not looking to make every election a vicious, nasty attack mode. And the minute the Republicans do it, the Republican defenders say, "Oh, the Democrats do it too." I saw pieces of literature this year that were nasty on both sides, but I saw more of it coming from one side because of desperation. They saw numbers, they did polling, they saw that they were in trouble. And the truth of the matter is that their base includes many people who love Donald Trump, who won't accept them breaking with Donald Trump on anything. Now, you remember, because I've been on the radio with you a long time, when Obama was president, I took public exception to his policy on Common Core. I was the one Democrat in Albany that said Common Core is wrong, and I sided with most of my conservative friends who didn't like Common Core either. Now come to pass, Common Core is dead. Turns out we were right. But when I took that position, I opposed Arnie Duncan and then later John King, who'd been the New York State Education Commission. I thought Obama was wrong, and I said so. I also think Obama's strategies on Israel were wrong, and I said so. I'm not Jewish, so it wasn't like I'm defending, something that emotionally connects to me. I thought it was was the wrong-headed policy to lean the way he did. But that doesn't mean I didn't support Obama. I thought he did some very good things. I thought the whole bailout of the automobile industry was brilliant, and he's never gotten enough credit for it. Having said all of that, no one in the Republican Party ever says anything about Donald Trump being wrong. They support him slavishly. And so what happens is every Republican, even when they're quiet, they don't say anything. Why get in the middle of a mess? Half of my electorate in the party loves Donald Trump. They think he's put here on earth by the Lord. And if I say anything against him, I'm dead meat. So I can't say anything against him. Well, you know what happens? Most people say, well, if you can't stand up to this man's abuses, which are obvious to all of us, then why am I voting for you? And good people, good Republicans are going down the drain because they can't make an honest break with Trump on a policy. I'm not saying break with him overall. Break with him on a policy that's insane. What he did with the Kurds was insane. Yeah, it was insane.
It was heartbreaking, actually.
And I only say this not to give lecture to the other side of the aisle, but to say this. This is a pendulum. I've seen it for too long. It will swing back the other way. The Republican Party will be on the rise at some point in time, and the Democratic Party will start to wane as well. We, the Democrats, who run now, Yonkers, Mount Vernon, White Plains, New Rochelle, Greenburgh, Mamaroneck, Ossining, Newcastle, all these towns that we run, and the county itself, we have to govern well. But the attacks on us have to be honest attacks. When I hear somebody say, well, you put 14% sales tax, you're wrong. It's 1% on the base. You're lying in order to try to make a political point. You're using a percentage of a percentage to try to fool people into thinking they're paying more than they are. That got rejected at the polls on Tuesday. If you have legitimate points of view about how you intend to improve the town or the county, that's fine. But you can't run on anger, and you can't run on resentment, and you don't win at the polls. Similarly, the Democratic Party can't run on registration. We can't go out to the population and say, hey, we won, we're great, here we are. No, we've got to govern. I'm going to give a budget a couple days that I think is a very responsible budget. You're going to say, oh, a Democrat did that budget? Well, you and I both know I worked in corporate America for 20 years, so I'm not your garden variety, far lefter. But we're going to give you a very responsible budget, and you're going to look at that and you're going to say that if the Democrats govern that way, they maintain my support. If they fail to govern that way, then the two-party system will give me a better alternative. And that, to me, is what we're facing right now. The Democrats have an opportunity across this county to show that the path of the last 2 years, and the path of the last 2 years, I think, is very defensible. We opened pools that were closed. We fixed a historic site that was falling down. Reestablished the CDBG program. Got a New Rochelle family court deal in place. We got additional sales tax revenue, and we shared it back to the community so they could lower taxes. We're coming in with a slight cut in our property taxes this year and stabilized fiscal policy. I go on, and I don't really want to. But that's what will determine whether or not the Democratic Party continues to show strength or not. And the Republican Party, no doubt, is thinking at this very moment, how do we come back from this? How do we come back and put better candidates in the field and have a chance of winning?
7:33, we're talking with County Executive George Latimer about the aftermath of the recent election. I wanted to ask you about one other race, and then I want to move on to affordable housing. How hopeful are you? She'll be with us at 9, by the way. Sean Patterson Howard, what a landslide! 80% of the vote.
Sean, obviously had a fantastic victory, and all kudos to her for winning. But let's be realistic. When she won the Democratic primary in the spring, that's the answer. Mount Vernon is 80% registered Democrat. There was never a question in my mind. Now, I like Andre Wallace. Frankly, I like just about everybody, except some people who go after me and I go after them. But I like Andre Wallace. But once he lost the primary, that was it. Sean won the primary, and she was going to go on to become mayor. I supported Clyde Isley in the primary.
I remember.
Clyde Isley was a gracious man. I thought he'd be a good mayor. But you know what? He endorsed Sean. So did I. We understood that the Democratic voters of Mount Vernon spoke. Now, they went out to the polls, and they gave her a ringing endorsement. So she's the mayor. She's got a hell of a tough task. She will have a supportive county government working with her where she needs it. There are things that she needs to do that's got nothing to do with the county government. And there are problems that, the hospital closing in downtown Mount Vernon, that's far more of a state, city issue, if that can be done. There's so many other things. But we will work alongside of her, certainly on Memorial Field, and we certainly can do other things in other parts of the community. And again, it's long noted that I grew up there and I spent time there. And just like Dennis Nardone loves the west end of New Rochelle, even though he's a Harrison guy, even though I live in Rye, I have a strong feeling for Mount Vernon. I think she'll do well, and I think you'll see the turnaround of Mount Vernon coming.
I want to talk about this story today. I'm sure you saw it, where Stephen Robinson has not yet completed the housing report. And I know you've at least according to the story, you put $20 million into the capital budget for affordable housing. Don't you need him to act before you can?
No, we need him to finalize the report, which he will, to the federal judge, and report on how Westchester has attempted to satisfy the issues that were raised in the lawsuit. Now, the lawsuit goes back to 10 years. There was a consent order signed by Andy Spano. Rob Astorino disagreed with it, and they litigated on it. And by the way, anytime anybody criticizes me about Playland, they say, well, Rob Astorino cut a deal on Playland. You're litigating. The next county executive has a right to fight policies that they don't agree with. And so he did on that, and I'm doing on Playland. In any event, there was a settlement after a long lawsuit. We lost the CDBG program for a while, and we were required to do a couple of different things on zoning for local governments and create at least 750 units of housing. Those things were satisfied. And I give credit to Rob where he deserves it. He satisfied the requirements of that lawsuit. he and his administration built the housing that they promised. They actually built more than what they were required to build, and I credit him for that. And I also credit him, at the end of the day, for satisfying what the court required. Now, because the lawsuit was generated by a group of activists in New York City, the judge's standard is not just, is this acceptable in Westchester, but will this involve additional comments by New York City commentary? Because keep in mind, people who live in the city view Westchester as wealthy, racist. That's how they see it. Because we're not Brooklyn, we're not the Bronx, we're a different kind of place, and we have different communities. And they know that intellectually, but they don't see it the same way. It's as if the county has the power that the city government of New York does, and we don't. I can't go into pick a community, North Salem, and tell them what to do with their zoning authority. You know, you can try to incentivize it and jawbone it, and you can hold this, and you could do this, and certain kinds of negotiations. So I think Judge Robinson's letter, he is a former judge, so we refer to him as Judge. Judge Robinson's letter will come, his report will come, and what he'll be able to say is we have issued, Westchester County's new administration now has an affordable housing effort that's active. We're issuing a report. I think, Bob, you're going to see it in the next 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing so much in the next few weeks. We have to hold up to the election because we don't want to do things before the election. Everybody says, well, that's election politicking. Okay, fine. The elections are over. Now we're going to start dealing with a host of issues that have had pent-up demand.
Well, that was my next
you'll
question.
Get the housing report.
Go ahead. What is coming down the road? I'm
What's
sorry
that?
to step on your words. That was my next issue, to look now at the rest of November on into January. What is planned? What kinds of things will we be hearing about?
Okay, well, again, first of all, Friday, county budget comes out. I've already teased out that there will be a reduction in the property tax levy. There will be no borrowing for any ongoing expenses. We will add $10 million to the reserve fund, and there'll be no one-shot financing to balance the budget. Those are all good, solid fiscal policies. The board will debate that over the next month or so. We're going to be releasing the affordable housing study. We have a date before Thanksgiving. It might be the last week of November. I'm not sure exactly when we're going to have it out. That will be a report to be reviewed and discussed all over the county. It will outline the need for affordable housing, the degree of need. We've looked at it not by community but by regions of the county because people move within regions. So the Sound Shore is a region, northeastern Westchester is a region, northwestern Westchester is a region, and so forth. And that will lay out a groundwork for us to move forward on developing affordable housing in a host of different places with the resources that the county has. In the budget, we have allocated $10 million for the New Homes Acquisition Fund, which is buying land to build affordable housing, and then $10 million for infrastructure. And that's all part of the capital budget, which was released back in October. You're going to see us in the budget make some policy statements. We're going to make some policy statements about our nature parks, our nature reserves, and we're going to have full-time staffing 7 days a week in those places. You're going to see us make a step towards sewage consolidation. And we have somebody who is going to take on that as a specific task, a very prominent individual who we think will have the respect and has the skills necessary
Anyone you
to
can
help
name
us
yet?
bring that project. I can't name him yet for you.
Okay.
I tease it, but I'll tell you as soon as we have
that's
the
good.
official announcement.
We like teases in radio. As you know, George Latimer, County Executive, is our guest. He's telling us what we can expect now post-election, heading towards the end of 2019 into 2020. Continue, County Executive.
We'll also have a proposal for a structural change in the county government. I guess this is too vague, which will be very interesting, and I think it'll be well debated around the county. It modifies something that was done a couple of years ago, and it makes it a tighter control. And I think it will represent a statement that I've wanted to make for a long time about checks and balances in county government. So I'll tease that one for you. That's not part of the budget. That'll be announced some point in time before the end of the month. We have to space these things out to make sure that you have something to report on, at every morning's broadcast. But yeah, I've been in office for almost 2 years. I've worked very hard at this job. I've thought a lot about certain things. I have had the privilege of having led the county legislature 20 years ago, served in the state legislature. So I have a kind of a unique, framework, platform from which I look at the interaction of the way the government structures work. And I think all of that will be reflected in this proposal that I make, which will be a proposed legislation to go before the Board of Legislators.
Tell me.
That'll come before the end of the month.
Mr. County Executive, what has been the biggest surprise now 2 years in? Anything?
Yeah, I think it's the size and scope of the unmet need before us, and I'm not trying to relitigate 2017, but here's the bottom line, in my judgment. We went through 8 years of a particular philosophy, and that philosophy said we need to reduce government in every way possible. And Bill O'Reilly said as much when he was quoted in one of the news articles. And in the reduction of government, things were done that reduced the size and scope of our workforce, the size and scope of our ability to do things that I consider to be necessary in the society. We got out of the business of helping our neighborhood health centers. We got out of the business of providing mental health places for people in these downtown areas. And I walk in the door and I inherit a bunch of problems. I inherit people who have mental issues, who are homeless, sleeping on the streets of New Rochelle, Yonkers, Pelham, Peekskill, and White Plains. And we closed the mental health places that would have helped treat them. And we did it to cost cut because we weren't mandated to do those things. If we weren't mandated, we didn't do them. So what's the biggest problem I have? I walk in the door, I see needs. I am not going to raise property taxes dramatically. In the short term, I'm not going to raise them at all. What I do in the long term is going to depend on what happens around me. I hear rumblings that the state is going to hit us with a bigger Medicaid bill. If they hit us with a bigger Medicaid bill, what am I going to do? I mean, what does anybody do? And somebody can stand on the sidelines and squawk about taxes, but if they wind up hitting us with a higher mandate, we're going to have to deal with it. But I walked in the door and I saw so many things. I saw the pools were closed and the Miller House was collapsing and all that stuff. So it's just a lot of things that have to be done at once. It's like walking into a kitchen with a couple of stoves and 6-7 burners on each stove, and every stove has got a pot in it, and every pot is boiling. And I've tried to be very low-key about it. As I said, I'm not trying to be hypercritical of the prior administration. I credit them for what they did on affordable housing. I credit them for what they've done in developing the North 60 proposal. I think it's a wise proposal, and I signed the document as was negotiated, previously. I'm not averse to giving credit where credit is due, but the difference of philosophy meant a lot. And some of the people who are critical of me online, particularly, they're not really angry over any particular thing I've done. They just know that I don't have their philosophy. I move in a different direction, and they don't like that philosophy. And so, therefore, if I found the cure to AIDS, they would still criticize me. And it's not a personal criticism; it's a criticism of me and all the Democrats. And then, of course, because they see a different America. They see an America where you're on your own, son, and if you can make it, look out for number one. Go get them. And the minimum that the society has to do is make sure there's police, fire, sanitation, and everything else is on to the individual. The society can't work that way. It's too complicated. Too many people have too many different needs. And if you try to have that minimalist government in a nation of 320 million people, you will have major, major problems. This is not 1838 America, And so that's why I have the philosophy I do. I'm governing with that philosophy, and I'm trying very hard to do it in an open way. How many public meetings, Bob, have I had? I mean, think about it. Since I became county executive,
I don't want
how
to
many
count.
times have I sat open and available for people to come right up to me and saying to my face, I think you're a bum? 30 meetings like that so far this year, all over the county. Who did that before I did? Nobody.
I think you're a bum. I like that one, Mr. County Executive. Well, I want to thank you for all the time this morning. And, of course, you can hear the County Executive right here on Radio Westchester every Monday. With the election and everything, we switched things around, and we wanted to get his take. Thank you so much. County Executive George Latimer, get back to those you're a bum meetings, okay?
You got it, man.
All right,
Take care. Have a nice day.
You too. George Latimer, County Executive. Very quick break, and then we will be back. Our man in White Plains has returned. He is. There's a headphone there for you, and you can adjust the volume on that little doohickey there. See that? We're going to be right back in just a minute or two. Let's take a look at the weather right now. The weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. and it's right here in New Rochelle. Right now, it is 47 degrees. We're going to get up to maybe 58 today. That's the good news. Cloudy with rain, though, late in the day. Maybe some snow mixed in. Tonight, mostly cloudy again with a mix of snow and rain. The temperature will be 30 degrees. The wind out of the northwest, 10 to 20 miles an hour. Friday, mostly sunny. The temperature will be 38. The wind will be out of the northwest, 15 to 25 miles an hour. On Saturday, mostly sunny skies. We like that. A temperature of 42. Overnight low, though, getting down to 32. Sunday, partly sunny. The high will be 52. Now, all this that you've been hearing about a big winter blast coming, for the most part, it's going to pass us until, well, maybe we get to Wednesday of next week. Some snow Tuesday, maybe some snow, but it'll get up to 42. That'll melt it away. But it's going to go down to 22. 22 on Wednesday. Yes, on Wednesday night. All right, it's time. Our man in White Plains is in the house. In fact, we're going to move him up. He doesn't know it yet, but we'll tell him right now. We want to keep him for a little extra time. He's at 7:50 today, but next week he'll be in at 25. He'll be in at 8:25, so we don't have to rush him out of here. We need to do more White Plains coverage. He is John Bailey. He's the managing editor, the publisher of WhitePlainsCitizen.net. He also is a television host at White Plains Week. Please welcome John Bailey. Good morning, John. How am you?
Good morning, Bob Marrone. Marroning in the morning.
Marrone in the morning.
Marroning in the
Oh,
morning.
Marroning in the morning. Well, you know, a lot of the guys I play hockey with like to say moron in the morning, which is just mean, but that's the way athletes are. What be happening in White Plains?
Well, we now have entered a return to normals.
Return to normal? You don't have it. You weren't really big in the election. I mean, you guys didn't have much going on.
Well, there was nothing to cover.
There was nothing really to cover in your city.
No, really. I mean, the Republicans really did not campaign virtually at all. And the Democrats were resting on their laurels. And, what can I say? There was no news.
How's the mayor? How's Papa Doc? Probably
Mayor
President for life. Mayor for
Mayor
life.
for
You
life.
got that one.
He can pick his next spot.
It's such a shame, you know. I have to dump on that because he doesn't come out to play, but he is a really decent guy. I know that. I got to know him pretty well and interviewed him when he was running first time. I guess it was 8 years ago.
He is the Guy Smiley of
How long has he been
politicians.
there?
Oh, gee.
8 years? About 8
this
years,
is
right?
Year 9.
Yeah,
came on board 2011.
I interviewed him on News 12 back in the day when he was first running, and he's a good guy. Just wish he'd come out and be on the radio more, talk about White Plains more. But again, these
You and me both.
no, but him, Mike Spano's the same way. But maybe one day we got a legislator here. We have one race here in New Rochelle, and callers get upset with me when I say this because the woman is a nice woman. She's a lawyer, she's a decent soul, but she ran without running.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, she just put her Democratic name on the ballot, and they say she walked around in her neighborhood and canvassed, but she wouldn't come on the radio,
Yeah.
talk to the press.
That's what we had heard about the Republican candidates. So they were doing a walking campaign. But
That can work in the right. It worked for her. She won handily, Sarah Kay.
well, she must have had a name.
No, she
did
had the
not.
Democratic uniform.
She
And she-
had a jumpsuit.
But if you will,
Democratic jumpsuit.
yeah, and she was the Democrat running in a highly Democratic district with a very popular Democratic mayor. So
Yes, right. Well,
just go right down the line. So what stories have you been following? Because I got a few things for you. We'll talk about.
Well, basically, the French-American school in New York problem is still going on.
One of my favorite stories.
Yes,
that goes all the way
know.
back when I was on
Everybody loves a
WFAS.
Fasney story.
I love the
story
Fasney.
that never ends.
The Fasney School. Who's winning the battle?
Well,
this time?
right now it is at the court, the appellate court down in Brooklyn, and they're going through motion practice, as lawyers like to call it. And what is happening now is that Fasney has until the third week in November to respond to the complaint filed by Dan Seidel, who is pro bonoing the Gay Association.
Oh, so
appeal.
he's for the people that don't want the school. Because what we
That's
need to
right.
explain that they say the Fasting School, the French American school there in White Plains, and the Gedney, it wants to use I guess that former country club or golf course,
Yes,
and
the
put a big
Ridgeway
school
Country.
on it, the Ridgeway, and the locals do not want it, traffic, kids,
Right,
et cetera, et
and
cetera.
they have delayed this like this is year 9.
Sorry about that. I turned off my mic, but they heard it on yours. I'm allergic
yes.
to you, John Bailey.
A lot of people are, Bob.
No, but so anyway,
it's a condition.
no, but let's get
John
back to
Bailey
this.
aversion, JBA.
Because what's cool about this is the people who don't want it, because it hasn't happened yet, have been successful. They haven't killed the animal yet, but they continue to keep the animal out of the house.
Yes, well, the the French American School of New York legal team wants the Gedney appeal, which Stidel is handling, to give them all the documents as part of their appeal, which is tens of thousands of copying of documents which were already published. And this is the big argument. They say you can't file an appeal without all the material which is already there for the record with the courts. And so this is what is holding things up. However, the thinking here is that the appellate court may kick it back to Lefkowitz, Judge Lefkowitz, who made the original okay decision to rule on whether the documents are admissible. But then it would go back to the appellate court, so the appellate court could get their hand in and decide whether you have to completely recopy documents already submitted to court. It's really a paper chase in the clear sense of that line.
Where do you think we're headed?
More delay. I say it's at least another year before the appellate court rules on that.
Now, why didn't they just pick up their toys and go home? Do they already own the land?
They do own the land, and in fact, this is what is preventing them from selling it, because no realtor wants to, buy the land, pay for it, and then be
the
again.
victim. Now the question is, what do the people? To be fair, I've always had a feel for the people who live there not wanting the school, and I know that there are very powerful people behind Fastney. In fact, one is rumored to be George Soros. Yeah,
there used to be.
Not so much anymore.
I don't think so.
Okay, but to be fair to business, what do they want there? Do they want nothing? Do they just want the land? Are they prepared to buy the land back from Fastney?
Well,
because this is the kind of thing that'll switch the sides.
This is definitely an option the city common council might be able to face. The new common council to reverse their very stupid decision not to buy the property at the time.
Oh, they had an opportunity to buy it?
Yes, they did.
And do what with it?
Excuse me?
And do what with it? Turn it into a park?
Well, it was suggested by the Bradley administration. You remember Adam Bradley?
I sure do.
Right? That we build we run it as a golf course and also build a swimming center. It would have been a city facility.
Is that what Mayor Bradley was going to do?
That's what they were going to do. But the Common Council rejected this because they did not like Bradley's legal problems.
Oh.
Right. Or it might be suggested that they wanted, since Tom Roach was in line to accept the mayor, that maybe this was a way to facilitate that.
So it was political as well as anything else.
Of course it was political.
Now, how
Everything is political.
much money would the city have to come up with to buy it? It can't be cheap.
$9 million. Cheap.
That's all?
That's right.
That is cheap.
That's right.
Wow.
And we rejected that opportunity to buy land for the city. Now, if the city had bought it, the neighbors could tweak it. They would have control.
Well, how many homes in Gedney, in the Gedney area, are impacted? And it is fairly well to do, is it not?
It's basically the area around the Ridgeway Country Club, which would be impacted directly. And everybody is very concerned about traffic onRidgeway. But what can I
we're
say?
talking about 10
that
homes,
was 11
50
years
homes?
Ago. That was 9 years ago.
But are these people that well to do that they can afford these, even though people doing it pro bono, that they can afford to keep up this fight?
Well, they did, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I
They
guess,
did.
what's that called? The anthropic principle. It happened, therefore it's so.
Yes, they can. But this is very instructive. as to how to kill a project. You have to have deep pockets.
You have to have deep pockets, but you also need to be resilient. You need to keep going back to court. You need to keep fighting it, and they've done well. Has the Common Council, has anyone introduced the concept of buying it back again?
No, I asked about that, and no one is really touching that.
I've noticed there's some work being done on some of the holes in the ground in White Plains.
Well, yes, the Louis Capelli's construction company, which is building the 55 Bank Street project, is now, I'd say, up to floor 5. They're building a floor a week.
Wow.
When he gets started, he builds.
Yeah, all of them build quickly now. Have you seen here in New Rochelle? These things, they grow up like spruces.
So that, I think, might be topped out by the fall. At
Now,
this rate.
what about that giant hole in the ground over by South
Nothing is
Broadway?
happening, Bob.
That's huge, that space.
It is. I have a picture of it on White Plains Week this week, and it's astounding that that much property, they haven't decided what they want to do with it because they do not think, maybe, that they have enough market for it. You know, it's supposed to be a big residential project.
Yeah.
But the fact that developer such as Elcor feels there may not be a market is instructive.
That is interesting that there may not be a market.
So we may overflood the market, particularly with the new Rochelle buildings coming on.
You know what we don't plug enough for you when you come in here? Your TV show. Wendy, it's on. I know you tape it Fridays, but that's not the important thing. When is it on, and when do people?
It's on Friday night at 7:30 on FiOS Channel 45 and Optimum Channel 76.
Okay. Now, soon will the
And
fires.
also on 7 o'clock Monday, same stations.
7 o'clock, but that's a rerun.
Yes, of the Friday show.
Okay, so you do it once a week, 52
Absolutely.
shows a year.
Right.
That's
There's
a lot.
always something.
What's coming up this week?
What's coming up this week? Well, we have to talk about the elections and the virtual end of the Republican Party in Westchester County.
Boy, I'll say.
There is no Republican Party anymore.
And
I mean, you got a legislature that is 15-2. I mean, Mr. Latimer
I know you heard him.
can, you know,
Although
can
he
do
expressed-
anything he wants.
He did express some concern, though. You know, he got to know a lot of the Republicans. Most of the Republicans on the board of legislators were moderates. They weren't hard right people, and
Yes,
but it is what it is. You know, and that's dangerous.
Of course it is.
I said it to him. It's dangerous. We need a loyal opposition. We need the recovery of the Republican Party here
Yes.
and elsewhere.
Well, you see what's happening in Washington when you have a recalcitrant failure to lead on the part of the Republican Party.
Well, they're going to ride the Trump horse either to the finish line or, well, that's my guess coming up. They're going to ride it to the finish line or they're going to perish with it. I don't know which is the case. John Bailey, thanks very much. Hang around a little bit. We're about to talk to a victory person. It is 7:59, coming up at 8 o'clock. That's in 1 minute. She's already on. You heard the phone ring. We had quite the victory here in New Rochelle this week. Martha Lopez, a Democrat from District 1 here in New Rochelle, unseated quite handily, actually. Longtime popular Republican Lou Trangucci. And now we will talk with her and give her a chance to take a victory lap and find out what it was like. Good morning, Martha Lopez. How are you?
Good morning, Bob. I'm fine, thank you. How is everything?
Things are good. It's busy here, but we were looking forward to talking with you. We talked with George Latimer, whom you know a little earlier. First of all, congratulations. What was it like on election night, and were you surprised by the extent of your victory?
Well, I have to tell you, this has been the most amazing experience that I have had in my life. And, you know, I always said that it wasn't just me alone. We had the community behind us. And, you know, everyone coming together as a community to say, yes, we can, and yes, we did, was very, very important. We had so many volunteers. I want to thank the voters, you know, because they came that evening. It was amazing to see people lining to vote, people telling me I have to wait 20 minutes to vote. We have an official numbers where it shows that 73% was an increase in the voter turnout.
Mm-hmm.
That's in comparison to the 2015 election. And some election districts had more than 100% increase in turnout. We are still waiting for the official results, but it is amazing to see how many people came out to vote. And, my heart goes for the community, and I thank them profusely. It was amazing. And, and I also want to thank Lou Trangucci. We both ran a clean campaign.
Oh, absolutely, you did. Yeah.
And, for his 12 years of service to our city, that's a long commitment, and he deserves recognition, for all that he has done for the community.
For you. That's very true, and we said that on the air as well. Now, Martha, how did you and your team get so many people out to vote? Was it door to door? Did you have teams of solicitors, phone callers? How'd you do it?
Well, I have to tell you, from the very beginning, we were out there in the community. We were connecting with everyone. We were knocking on doors. We were, having meets and greets. We were, reaching out to everyone via, phone calling or getting out the vote was like visiting, people, listening to the concerns of the community. So we had everything, phone calling, volunteers. We had so many volunteers. The Latino community came together. It was really amazing. They also wanted to volunteer.
How many volunteers did you have?
Overall?
Yeah.
We had like maybe 40, 50.
That's pretty good in a district. I mean, it's a big district, but that's pretty good. They can go out and ring doorbells and make.
Oh, they were
phone
amazing.
calls. Yeah.
They were really great. Yeah, like maybe 50, maybe more.
What are you going to do? Of course, you'll be brand new. You'll take the oath, and I guess on New Year's Day, and you'll become a full-fledged councilwoman. What's the first thing you're going to do? What will be your priorities now?
I have to tell you that I have already started. What I did yesterday was to go back to the businesses to thank them, for their support. I am going to be putting together workshops, seminars. I want people to know that government works for them. And I want to be, like I always have said, I want them to know that I am a phone call away. And by us having every month a workshop, for them to know that, I'm going to be available at all times to listen to their concerns, that is very important to me. So, like I said, I started already, even though I'm not in office yet, but, I am connecting with voters and letting them know that government is there for them.
Well, that's a good thing that you're already doing that. Do you have any specific legislation, or is there anything specific to your community that you want to do after that? What kind of problems do you see that you want to solve?
Well, that's a very good question, Bob, and I am really looking forward to getting there first. To get there yet, and to to learn and to empower people and to let them know that, we are there standing with them. So I am looking forward to just, to the first day in office.
Well, it's certainly going to be exciting. What was it like on election night? Being a person running for the first time, and just a little background. Over the years I've been covering elections, I've seen hearts broken. I've seen people elated, even if they've run before or not. But as a brand new city councilwoman, what was it like to see that you won? What did it feel like?
You know what? Like I said, it was so amazing. I just, there was so much energy. There was so much energy, in the community. And when I would be walking up and down Union Avenue, Washington, the South End, Main Street, Huguenot, and to see people with their little stickers saying, "I voted," and for people to be letting me know that, they had gone out to vote, there was so much energy. Like I said, the experience was overwhelming. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Did you
actually?
Go ahead.
3 hours each, before the election every night, and I'm just catching up with sleeping hours because I've been sleeping like about 3-4 hours a day.
Yeah, that's the price you pay. We're talking with Martha Lopez, the city councilwoman-elect for District 1 here in New Rochelle. She unseated and gave thanks to him for his public service. She unseated the Republican 12-year incumbent, Lou Trangucci. Lou's interesting in my own career. He's the first political interview I ever did was 12 years ago with Lou, or 13 years ago. So history is an interesting thing. So did you have a campaign manager or anyone who worked with you that you want to thank?
Had an amazing campaign director, Jean Wang, who was incredible. She was so fantastic. She, kept me right on target. I learned so much from her, and she loves this community. She's a New Rochellian. She, is just fantastic. Like I said, I had a tremendous team, and Jean is someone that, I met, like a year ago, and actually I met her in January of this year, and, I will be friends forever with her. She is like my daughter. She is amazing.
For the first time, if I have it right, there will be 3 women on the city council. That's number one. And number two, we were talking with George Latimer earlier, and he was telling us how the indivisible movement here in Westchester is largely women. Women seem to be gaining power in this county. And that's never a bad thing. I mean, we've had men running things for thousands of years. It's a good sign. What's your reaction to that?
Well, you said 3 women. There'll be 4 women in the council.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I don't count very well. As you can see, I failed math in high school. 4 women in the council. That even gives, that gives you a vote if you want to use it. Women can pretty much do what they want. It'll be like my house. Women decide everything. Go ahead.
Well, my husband says the same thing here.
Well,
it's going to be great. I am really looking forward, to work with the council, and to know that there are 4 women in the council is even better.
Well, yeah, I did say 3, didn't I? It's just I didn't get my math right. How does your family feel about it? Your husband, your children?
Oh, they are all very happy. They are very happy. They were very supportive. My almost 4-year-old granddaughter would see the lawn signs, and, she would say, "Look, Martha Lopez." And it was just great. They were terrific. They were helping me. I was never home. My poor husband, never had a meal cooked at home.
Let him cook himself.
Of course. That's what he did. But they were all very, very helpful and very supportive.
Well, listen, I wanted to get your reactions to running. I have great admiration for people, even people there was a third rung in the Mount Vernon election. Out of the 10,000s cast, she got 100 votes, the conservative there. Anyone who goes out and puts it on the line like that has my respect. And in addition, you have our congratulations. It's good for you, good for District 1, and we wish you all the best. And, of course, we'll give you a regular spot to talk about what's going on in your county, so not to worry about that. You'll have a voice right here on Radio Westchester.
Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you. And I want to thank the community, and I want everyone to know that government works for them, and we are a team.
Thank you so very much for being with us this morning. We are going to go through a couple of stories, and then we are going to find out what Jake has been working on, this Francesa fact of the day. We'll talk with him, and we'll get John Bailey's reaction to it. Stay right there. Today's programs are brought to you and supported by the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management and Aging Issues Radio. Dominic Cigars, they bring you Jake's craziness, including his picks of the week. Coming up tomorrow, he's become an investment firm and plug-in virtual reality. You can come here for the experience, or we'll take virtual reality right out to you. The number to call is 914-727-2726. Let's take a quick look at the headlines. Jake, get in the saddle. You can hang, John. Just move over there. We've got preschool special education in New York. Our providers misspent $85 million and fueled an access crisis. And is it an access crisis? Yes. They put all this money into it, and it wasn't available for the people that needed it. Why? And this story from LOHUD by David Robinson. From ineligible executive bonuses, unqualified relatives on payroll, secretive expenses with sketchy paper trails, the money flowed while some of New York's most vulnerable children struggled to access key educational services. Much of the spending went largely unchecked for years, even though 79,000 preschoolers needed it. Yet despite improved oversight, the pattern of theft, mismanagement, and government waste continues to wreak damage. And folks, I go back to something many of you remember, Black Hawk Down. We said, oh, look at those horrible Somalians taking the food that was being dropped for the people. Well, we have right here in Westchester, in New York, in places throughout the country, people who take these grants, and rather than spending the money on the people who need it, they give themselves big raises. They use the money for inappropriate things. They hire relatives, and it is an excuse or an opportunity to feather their nests
Steal.
rather than help others and to steal. That's right,
Yes,
John
to
Bailey.
steal.
Now, New York also pledged $82 million. We didn't realize they closed 17 prisons in New York State since the current governor took over. But he didn't have to spend as much money as he thought. He pledged $82 million after they closed to upgrade the prisons we have. Of the $80 million, $59 has been committed to projects, and only $39 million has been dispersed. Most of the money, about $23 million, has gone to developing the state's struggling nanotech industry in the Utica area that was entangled in the Buffalo billions scandal, which led to the conviction of Sully Polytechnic Institute's former president, Alain Calieros, to go to jail. And so much of the 17 communities that lost prisons haven't seen any money yet. Most of them have not. And they're going to need the money because they lost jobs and they lost all that spending power. And lastly, just a couple other stories here. Westchester affluence, in other words, demographics, folks. And for years, we've argued with people on this program who don't understand that until we change the downtown, we won't get good retail. The nature of retail is you don't put the store there and then people come. If the people have the buying power and the spending power and the spending patterns, then you get retail. To wit, the 5-building Vernon Hills Shopping Center in Eastchester has been sold for $125 million to a New York-based investor who lauded the strong demographics and income of the area. Very smart move. An Eastchester shopping center, a group Ashkenazi Acquisition Corp. They said, give it to us, we'll make money there, and they're going to if they run it right, if they make retail an experience as well. And, of course, the story that we talked about with George Latimer a little earlier, and we'll cap it with this, the Federal Housing Monitor here for Westchester, Stephen Robinson, or Judge Robinson as they call him, he hasn't done the report yet. Do you know how much he gets, Jake?
Minimum wage.
Well, no. He gets $1,630 an hour to do these things, but he's giving us half price. So he's only charging us $675. I'll write it for him.
How late is he?
He's totally late. It's a year late.
Oh, fire that guy.
Yeah, he says he's going to get it done, and Latimer wants to put in more affordable housing. He's already put $20 million into his capital budget to do it. So
yeah, who's going to build it?
We shall see. And lastly, before we get to Jake does some interesting stuff here. Where do we get to Jake? Before we get to Jake, we remind you, too, that the Rangers actually won last night, but the Rangers, they beat the worst team in hockey only 2 days before having lost to the second worst team in hockey. And this is if Tom is listening. Last night was a perfect example of non-National Hockey League play. A lot of talent out there. And despite what the commentators said, they play like junior hockey play. Junior is not a bad word, by the way. It's like college hockey in Canada. Junior hockey's like, for all intent and purposes, pros for 18, between 17 years of age and 20. It was a junior hockey game. Not a lot of helter-skelter, up and down the rink. It looked good. It looked like having racehorses out of a barn, but it wasn't Major League Hockey. But we're still glad that the Rangers won, and it is time. We are going to talk with our man, Jake Schaefer. And don't forget, tomorrow he'll be bringing you his picks of the week. He's 9-4, John Bailey. He's an investment machine. But he's been working on something because Mike Francesa's retiring again. Going to do this, though. Everybody's doing this now. They want to stream. They want a podcast. And us, by the way, we almost have it ready. We'll be going out soon. You'll be able to tell your Echo or what is it called, Alexa? You'll be able to say, put on Radio Westchester. Boom, we'll be on. And we also are available on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Periscope. I got to check that out myself. Sounds nasty. All righty, Jake is going to tell us all about another Mike Francesa little-known fact. Jake,
all right,
you're not supposed to cut that quick, but I did anyway.
From the home office in Wampsville, New York, it's
Wampsville.
Today's Mike Francesa fact of the day.
Oh, by the way, you're placating the general manager here, which is me, with all your hockey wear. He's got a Utica Comet hat on and a USA Miracle on Ice shirt from Lake Placid 1980. Thank you for that. All right, go ahead. Wait, drum roll.
Mike Francesa fact of the day. When Mike and the Mad Dog broke up in 2009, Mike offered the Mad Dog seat to only one person.
Who?
Bill Simmons.
Who's Bill Simmons?
ESPN guy.
Oh, he didn't take it?
Did not accept. Could not reach financial
And probably
terms.
didn't want to be bullied either by Mike. Well, why don't you give us a preview? What are you looking at for tomorrow, Mr. 9-4?
9-4. I'm not going to touch tonight's game. I don't like the London games at all. I have no idea. It is the Raiders and the Chargers. The Raiders are favored
All
by
right, they're
one.
playing out in London. A couple of hockey teams are playing out in Sweden too. I forget who is it? Or Finland? I don't remember. I think it's Sweden. The Lightning. Anyway, go ahead. Who do you like so far?
Well, we've got the. I'm calling it the Disgrace Bowl.
If
I see
the
that
toilet bowl.
If
Come
I see
on.
that on the back of the New York Post on Monday, I swear to Christ,
It wouldn't. No, I
calling-
bet you they call it the toilet bowl.
I'm calling Pena and Khan immediately.
I bet you that's our law firm sponsor.
But I will. Right now, the Jets and the Giants game. It's a home game for the Jets, but who really knows?
It doesn't matter. They play in the same building. What's the spread?
Right now, the Giants are favored by 2.5. If
This is a pick'em affair.
If it stays at 2.5, I will take the Giants. But if it goes to 3, I will have no idea who to take because that's such a half a point
half
right
point is
there.
big?
Yeah,
It's that big
it's
with
a
these
difference
two
between
teams?
a field. I mean, it could be a 2-0 game. It could be a 6-3 game.
But isn't it going to be like that game last night between the Rangers and the Red Wings, where it'll look good but not be NFL football?
I missed that game, unfortunately.
But
I was
last night,
watching-
no, I know, but the analogy is: do you think it'll be a well-played game?
Oh God, no.
Yeah, that's my point.
No, it'll
And
be-
because last night was not. Again, the analysts have to sell. Oh, wonderful game. No, they were running up and down like the kids that they are. And you know, you pay $500 for a seat, you ought to be able to see Major League Hockey. But that was not Major League Hockey last night. Go ahead.
Another interesting game I'm looking at is the Browns at home giving 3 to the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Browns seem to be in a free fall, and the Bills have something, they're onto something this year, it might seem. So
Why
I'm
the
looking
Brown-
at that game.
Why are the Browns favored then?
They're at home.
That
Cleveland
matters
is a
that much in football?
good home field advantage.
Nah. Okay, what else you looking at? And again, you haven't made your pick yet, but we want people to know what games you may be considering because what they'll do is tomorrow, when we have you on, they'll be ready to
Yeah.
see if they read your, it's probably frightening for them, read your mind.
The Colts-Dolphins game is very interesting. The Colts are at home. They're favored by 10.5. It was 10, and I loved the Colts when it was just 10, but now it's gone up to 10.5 against
10.5?
Against the awful Dolphins. So that's another one I'm going to think about.
Who's the quarterback for the Colts? Luck?
It's Luck retired.
Oh, that's right. He retired at the beginning of the
Yeah.
year.
But
That's
it's
right.
Brissett, but he's hurt. He is questionable to play, so I have to, check the injury report.
So these
before.
are the three big games. What you have? Don't you have a fourth?
I will pick 4 games for you tomorrow. I'm just
Okay, I got a couple of questions for you about football since you're a football expert, and we want to be sure.
and
that
I
we
will
understand.
pick the LSU Alabama game for Tom.
How many, as opposed, for Tom, LSU, the college. Oh, college football. Let's get back to the pros.
But I will not put that onto my
The
permanent
quarterbacks in
record.
football. How many truly elite quarterbacks are there, and how good are the backups?
Well, look at what the Saints are doing with their backup quarterback. He's
Well, that's my point.
held the fort for Breeze, and now it looks like they might be on their way to the Super Bowl.
Do we have it? Sometimes I think football has the problem that hockey had 40 years ago, where they only had 6 teams, in terms of quarterbacks only, because there's only one on each team. There are probably a lot of great quarterbacks we'll never know because they never get the chance. They've been backups their whole careers. Every once in a while, a guy makes a good career out of being a backup. Fitzpatrick, I guess his name is. He's still around, isn't he?
He is.
He played for the
He's
Jets.
Dolphins with the Dolphins now. I think he's starting this weekend.
He is starting this weekend.
What's an incredible stat is look at Brady and his backups, what their record is this year. You've got the quarterback in San Francisco. San Francisco is 8-0. They've got Brissett in Indianapolis, so it's 8-0. Indianapolis is 5-3.
And these are backups.
So it's that 13-3. And the Patriots are 8-1, so that is 21-4. So Belichick's the quarterbacks that he's groomed are 21-4 on the year.
Well, I mean, his old backups have gone to other teams.
Brady's 2 backups are starting for other teams now.
They're starting for the team.
Yeah.
Now, are they full-fledged starters, or were they backups that got the job
Well,
in those cities?
they were backups to Brady, and then when their contracts came up, they were offered the
Is
big
Sanchez
bucks to go
anywhere
start.
anymore?
Oh God, no.
He's not even
I
in
think
the NFL anymore?
He's in the ESPN booth.
Really? He was a good... How could you be that good and then not be that good? I'm asking. You're a football expert.
Well, maybe he didn't put in the time. Maybe he didn't do his homework. Maybe he was out carousing.
That
I have
sport
no
just
idea.
spits you out, man. What about Geno Smith? Is he playing anywhere?
I have no. He might be carrying a clipboard somewhere.
Oh.
But he's.
All right, one more time. People are saying, I didn't write it down yet. Give us the three games you're looking at already. Jets, Giants.
Of course, we
I wrote 'em down.
got to talk about the Jets-Giants game.
Stay on the mic. Jets, Giants. Right now, the Giants are favored 2.5. If it goes to 3, that's going to turn you into a turmoil. You think it's going to be that close?
Yeah, I could see it being
I think one of the
6-3
quarterbacks-
game. I like the Giants.
6-3.
Yeah, I like the Giants with the 2.5, but it goes to 3. I wouldn't know what to
A
do
6-3 game. Oh, I
Yeah.
think they're going to score lots of touchdowns because the defenses aren't any good.
I think they're both terrible on both sides of the ball.
Okay, well, you know better than we do. Browns, Bills. What about Browns, Bills?
It's so hard to take the Bills on the road. I'm not 100% sold on the Bills yet. I'm leaning towards the Bills, though.
And the Colts, 10.5 or the Dolphins.
Got to see who's playing quarterback for the Colts, but it's in Indianapolis. I probably will lean towards the Colts, no matter who's the
Indianapolis
quarterback.
Colts. You know, I remember exactly where I was. Do you remember when the Colts left Baltimore?
Packed up and left in the middle of the night.
I saw that. I was actually, it's kind of funny. It was a cute thing. I took my daughter to Hershey, Pennsylvania. It was late March, and it looked like there was no more snow, but there was a blizzard. So we got stuck up in Hershey. We didn't have gloves. We didn't have boots. It was 2 feet of snow. We almost didn't make it into Hershey. Watched the game. My daughter was 6 or 7, whatever it was. And we had seats to the Hershey Bears. And so we got stuck. And you know how it is when you're on the road. We were like waking up like at 5 in the morning. What are we doing here? And we put on the TV and we saw the trucks. They left in the middle of the night. What a scuzzy thing. Sports is not
Art Modell.
Sports is not a very ethical business.
It's all about the moolah.
It is all about the moolah.
Quick question about the Mike Francesa fact of the day for
Yes.
our legal team.
Yes.
Does the Mike Francesa fact of the day actually have to be a fact?
No, because we'll put it under the header of a bit. It could be a rumor. It could be a fact. I remember, because I'm a big radio nut, and my morning show here was Imus, because Imus mixed humor and serious stuff. I mean, I'm talking about the second half of his career. He would, 1 minute he'd interview a president, and then the next minute he'd be making fun of the same president. You know, like his best interviews probably were with Clinton, when he'd ask him, "What did you do in the back of that pickup truck?" and stuff like that. But having said that, he always had a sports guy, and his sports guys have done well. Mike Breen was his sports guy, who's the famous now Nick announcer. Francesa was his sports guy. And the last one that I remember, before I started doing my own show in mornings, and then many years ago now, was Carlin, who got screwed somehow.
A lot of people think Francesa had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, radio's a vicious business. What I mean by vicious, vicious is not fair. It's not vindictive. It is indifferent. Like they're going to probably break up Evan, I forget his name, and Benito.
Benigno, yeah.
They're going to break those two up just to save money.
It's too bad. That's a good team. That's a good radio show.
It's a very good team, but content has become second since all the big stations bought it up, and now all they look at is numbers. And you still have to get people to listen. Content matters, right, John Bailey? You do TV, and you've got a face for radio, though. How'd you get into the television business?
No, I just came up with this idea about 20 years ago because nobody was reporting the news in Westchester County, and it's gotten worse. Less papers, and so that's why I started public service.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk with Andy Spano in a few minutes and follow up with John. Andy Spano probably has a lot to say about yesterday's election, and actually the night before, and certainly what's going on in Washington. This is the one, the only Radio Westchester. Stay right there. I missed my cue. I was supposed to say hello to you when that stopped. Oh, he's here already. We are going to take care of it. That is the former county executive. We spoke to the current one, and now the former one is going to be with us in just a minute. It is 8:30. You're listening to Radio Westchester, Marrone in the morning, or Mornings with Bob Marrone and Bob Marrone. We are live at the train station once again. We're here each and every day. That is this show from 6 to 10 a.m. In just a moment, we're going to be talking with Andy Spano. the former county executive. We do have a lot to talk about with him for sure. This bottom of this hour is supported by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhdc.com. Also supporting us this hour is Aging Issues Management and Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Pena and Khan, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and Dominic's Cigars. And it's a 47, getting up to near 60 today. Tonight we just might have a mix of snow and rain. It'll be cloudy. Temperatures getting down to 30 degrees. And the weather today was brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit UHGC.com. And right here on the telephone, and we love talking with this man for all kinds of reasons, please welcome Andy Spano. And let me be sure I put the right one on. Oh, here we go.
Bob, I didn't know. It's the Marrone in the Morning. Huh? Is that the name of the show you got?
No, actually, the name of it is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I keep screwing it up to the chagrin of our marketing people. But
I like Marrone in the Morning.
you know how that translates to. Like, I got hockey buddies that, hey, we listen to Moron in the Morning. you know the way guys are. And let me just screw up one line, trip over one word, and you don't know the stuff that I hear. Andy Spano, pretty soon it's going to be easier to win the lottery than find a Republican in Westchester County. Whoa, what an election.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's not good for the country or the county.
No, it's not good for the county either. It was bad when they were all Republicans, when I ran. And it's bad now when it's more Democrats than Republicans. You got to have a nice balance. Just enough Republicans to make it look legitimate.
Well, we have that's honest. John Bailey. He was just in today. He's got his headphones on. He's laughing his butt off to make it look legitimate. Boy, that's the most honest thing an elected official has ever said.
No, I always. I mean.
What's the matter with you?
Let me tell you something. It's worse when you're dealing with all of one party. It's just worse. That's all.
Yeah, plus you can get blamed for everything. It's like, remember the IDC? It was a beautiful thing. It gave the governor cover. It's them.
Right.
It's those guys. It wasn't me.
Sometimes I would have problem with. I had to one day go to the other side of the aisle. I'm not going to go over the details. And if I didn't, it would have severely hurt but I would never have gotten it through just with the Democrats. And because you go to a legislature, and in the legislature they make their own deals in the legislature.
Oh yeah. They got their own club.
And I had the speaker one day tell me in Albany, because he had to protect one of his members. I said, "Well, you're protecting your member, but you're killing me. It's legitimate. You know what I mean?"
It looks good anyway. I'm still laughing at that. Well, your counterpart, one of your successors, George Latimer, was on this morning with us, and he actually he said he had some people in the legislature with whom he got along well, who were good, solid conservatives who he respected, and he actually felt bad for them. And plus, I guess even now George is going to be in the position of having nobody to blame. But he doesn't seem too concerned about it. But it really is a problem not having enough Republicans. Now, Mr. Latimer gave a lot of attribution for this to President Trump and felt...
Oh, yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. These are all based on Trump. Some people are just voting Democratic because of Trump. And it doesn't matter whether it's for the dog catcher in Yorktown or someone else, the senator.
Well,
I thought an interesting thing that happened today.
Yeah.
Is Jeff Sessions is thinking of not thinking. He's saying he's going to run in the primary in Alabama.
He'll win
for the Senate seat.
He'll win, but isn't that going to hurt the president? I mean, the president humiliated this guy.
I know. That's what makes it so interesting, because there was no doubt in my mind that the Democrat was going to lose because he had run against that other guy who was a disaster. And now if he loses to Sessions, who is not a Trumper. Ought to be interesting.
Well, he was a Trumper. Let's remember that.
Originally, he was a Trump, right? Big supporter, one of the first senators. But that guy, it's really funny. I mean, he's a guy you were rooting for because he was doing some of the right things, and even though he was doing some of the other things he was doing, some of the right things when he was Attorney General. But the things he was doing that I didn't like were just philosophical and things that we just disagreed on. But he was trying to keep the actual Attorney General's office, where it was supposed to be.
It's remarkable stuff. Really is remarkable stuff. Well, we have one locally. This, for people who love politics, this one is fun. We have, you may know about this, you've read about it if you haven't. We have a new superintendent of schools here in New Rochelle.
I know all about it.
Okay, but here's the best part. The most far left groups in the county, okay, Indivisible, Westchester, New Roar, this group called The Collective, anybody with a megaphone, far left. Well, this effort is being led, and I guess because the guy's an African-American, they didn't read his resume. He's a full-fledged Trumper, appears on Fox News, and loves having his picture taken with the president. I love it.
This is a really interesting thing, and one of the reasons I would say, well, do you think it's which side are you on? I wouldn't say that because all I know is what I read in the newspaper or get in my digital news. So I don't know the people personally. I haven't been up close, but that's the kind of thing that you jump at if you don't know anything.
Yes,
and it's too bad.
I know well, but. I'm going to say this categorically. In 15 years of doing this kind of show, I interviewed her for an hour, this superintendent. She is on the face of it, for an hour, the most impressive education administrator I have ever interviewed. Balanced, smart, fair, committed, and it would be a shame if she doesn't hold on to the job. A shame.
Yeah, well, this is, I used to tell groups when I get in front of them, and they were ethnic groups other than mine. I would say, we all have flakes, and our idiots.
Yeah.
Just because we're part of the group, just because some guy is Italian, sticking up for
that wasn't autobiographical,
doesn't mean
was
I'm
it?
Supporting him.
It wasn't autobiographical, was it, Andy? I'm sorry. I can't help it. You can't give me an opening like that. We're talking with Andy Spano, former county executive, political analyst. I'm going to hell for that. Please forgive me. I couldn't help it. Anyway. But really, it's a serious issue, and these people care. The people, the New Raw folks, they care. They're concerned about the fact that they have black students and a principal and other minorities, and the superintendent of their school system has sued Carranza. I'm so glad she did, by the way, but that's my own personal opinion. Because she was her job she was demoted in favor of someone because of her color, and she has every right to sue, whether they like it or not, in my opinion. But
well, she didn't know she was going to be applying for a job in a situation like this, so she did what was appropriate under the circumstance.
Yeah,
maybe, but look. Everyone has their way of thinking and what they're doing and their political motives, et cetera, et cetera. Life ain't fair and it ain't reasonable.
No, it's not, and you certainly learned that when you run. I need you to really put on your analytical and political hat here, and it's not my intent to, as maybe a daily ritual for many talk show hosts, to throw Republicans under the bus. But if I do, so be it. Not Mitch McConnell. It may have been Sessions, or no, it was the other guy, Lindsey Graham. 2 weeks ago, he said when asked, if it is shown that there was quid pro quo, that's going to be a problem. And 2 weeks later, he says it's all nonsense. Now, I know they want to protect the president, and I understand that from a political point of view. But how long can the Republicans, the Kellyanne Conways, the Mitch McConnells, et cetera, get away with not just spinning, but lies that are so overt and so transparent that it's degrading the country? When And there are similar things I can do on the left, but now they're the ones in the newspaper. Why do they think that this is going to be sustained, and don't they realize it degrades the country? What am I missing, Andrew Spano?
Whether it was Trump, whether it was what's been happening the last 2 years, whether it's been building for a long time, where you talk to people and they say, "Well, that's what politicians do." I ignore it now.
But
that's dangerous. That's dangerous. That's what I consider most dangerous. Everyone sees it. I mean, every day you have the two things. You have his comment live on television saying, well, if it was quid pro quo, it would be something I would have to worry about. And now you have his comment saying whatever he's saying now, and it doesn't register. It registers with 50% of the population. The other 50% is where I am. Hey, they tell jokes, they lie, they do this, they do that, and that's just part of that game.
No, but where does what about the? I mean, it's one thing to spin. I used to say when I was in corporate America that someone trying to spin me is a sign of respect. They don't want me to see through them. I hope they're good at it. I either want what I want from them or I do want a very good dance. They don't even give me a very good dance. They leave all their clothes on and they dance like a broken helicopter.
Because it has no consequences with the groups that they're talking to.
Why? See,
why? Because you've been inured to this whole thing. You've been put together so that now you can accept it that way.
I guess so.
And that's all it is to it. I mean, there's nothing else. Now, this is the way people are. And where I have a problem with is that young people see all this too, and you're going to have a whole generation growing up thinking this is okay. I mean, you lie to your mother. Your mother says to you, "Hey, you lied," and you say, "Well, president lies."
Well,
Senator lied,
and he doesn't.
I mean?
But they don't even try and spin. I used to love doing these little bits, pretending I was Kellyanne Conway, and say the world is flat. I see. I understand spinning. I mean, Obama did what he said. You'll be able to keep your doctor, and we couldn't. I get that. But if someone is standing right there, and you say something like the emoluments clause is phony, people should be outraged at that. It's the Constitution. When the people on the left say that they don't say the gun law is phony, the Second Amendment, they say they want to change it, or it doesn't mean that. But he called it phony, and nobody cares.
They don't even know what the emoluments clause is. You can't deal. You're dealing. Everyone's dealing with logic in an emotional environment. That's the problem. Logic and emotional environment, they don't go together. Okay?
Yeah, no kidding. All right,
that everyone who's dealing with Trump tries to prove he's wrong by bringing up proof. He doesn't care about proof.
Because it's not about proof. And to be fair, what's gotten buried is the things that he's done that he said he would do that matter. People will say he's done some good stuff, and of course he has. But it's all getting thrown out with the bathwater, unfortunately. We're talking with Andy Spano, former county executive here on Radio Westchester. He is also a political pundit from whom we benefit. I'm going to come back to national, but I did skip over a local issue. Were you happy with the early voting? You work for the Elections Commission part of your time. Were you happy with the results of the early voting?
Absolutely. I've talked to the guys in Albany, because I'm one of the 4 commissioners in charge of this.
Uh-huh.
And we statewide it went beautifully. Now, we have to do a debriefing on it with all the local commissioners, to find out, to make it better for next year. We also have to look at the numbers and the money we spent, to make this happen. And the numbers we got out, is this just the beginning, or is this what we're going to get forever? This kind of turnout. It was an off-year election. A lot of places didn't have what they considered important elections, There were these people who only vote for, federal elections. And we'll see what happens next year with the numbers. But this year, there were just minor hiccups all over the state. Minor hiccups.
It went smoothly here, and I think it really helped all of the candidates. I mean, I realize all the Democrats won because of the zeitgeist in the country. Again, Andy Spanel with us. I want to get back to what people are concerned about, because we're going to see a lot of turmoil this year. If there is an impeachment, senators on both sides are not going to be able to run for office because their obligation will be to be in the Senate. Do you think that'll make a move and try and arrange a compromise? Do you think, A, he'll be impeached, they'll bring articles of impeachment? B, do you think that he will be voted out of office?
I believe that there'll be articles of impeachment. Right now, I don't believe there are 30 people that can vote, will switch over from the Republicans. However, it's too late it's too early to predict anything. You don't know what's going to come out in this public testimony. Public testimony is important because what it does is it brings a real live person to the person who's watching. It's not behind doors. It's not some talking head, saying this is what they said or might have said. They'll hear it directly, and they'll look at the credibility of the person saying it and whether they think it's that important. But once you get these characters, like the two guys that were operating with Giuliani and so on in this whole picture, I mean, then it becomes a little interesting. You know what I mean?
Well, I keep remembering back during Watergate, remember there was Segretti, the dirty tricks guy, and there was Tony Ulasewicz, the guy who had the coins. Remember him? He would making secret phone calls with the coins. Well, it's nice to have these two seeming skells that work for seeming. I say we don't know yet that work.
No, you don't know. I mean, they may be innocent. Let's give them.
No. I said seeming. That is my own word for alleged. But what do you think? How you knew? What the hell happened to Giuliani?
I don't know, man. I told you, I think a couple of times back, that I thought that his personality, even when he was younger, was similar to this. But you never experienced it this way. And people don't remember that before 9/11, his numbers were way down.
Yeah, he was in trouble.
He was in trouble. And the same kind of braggadocio that he has, that played very well in 9/11. Because he just took over.
Well, that is a time, yes.
That his thing. And it was an appropriate thing at that time. So everyone remembers that. They don't remember anything that happened before it. So it's interesting that this has been projected out and he's come back. But there's like something missing.
Yeah, something's broken. Something's broken.
There's something missing. Right. There's something missing in his personality. Something that doesn't look right. I mean, the people are laughing at him on TV. When they talk about him, they laugh about him.
848. Let's go to the other side of the aisle, because we need to beat up some far left liberals now. I'm just going to put this out there for you to chew on and have fun and spit back or whatever. But the Elizabeth Warren, for reasons that I can't figure out, has gone over the edge too far, and she can't win. She'll put Trump back in the White House. So will Bernie. What are the Democrats going to do about the far left taking things too far in ways that people won't accept?
That's what I love about the Democrats. So this is democracy. I can spout all that. We'll see what happens at the convention and after all these primaries. I don't think that holds. I don't think anyone wants anyone right now.
No.
There's no one out there on both sides of the aisle that anyone wants to be president. You know that. I mean, there's no popular person out there.
Well, is Joe out of gas?
I think that's what's happening now. I think that's what he's showing. And I think that they look and say, well, it'll be calm. I think people want calm. You can't go through this all the time.
It's every day. In fact, it's gone on so long. But most people are still thinking that Mueller failed. He didn't fail. Now he failed because he was timid. And he missed his point. He had an appointment with history. And we in the Brooklyn streets, we used to say he punked, but we'll just say he abdicated. He walked away. All he had to do was say one thing. He didn't need to say it in the negative. He didn't say, well, there are provisions to do that. He should have said, he should not have said, I can't explicate him. He should have said, there's reasons here to investigate the president, but that's not my job. That is the job of the Congress to impeach if they think that. Why wouldn't he say that?
I don't know why he wouldn't say that, but you couple that with what Barr did, in evaluating the initial report and sending that out before he sent the report out, and it all worked to the advantage of Trump. Now I think some of that is coming back, and they're wise, just keeping on the one track and making sure that they stay with this one issue.
Well, did you see the Times today? Evidently, the president thought that he could just ask Barr, as if Barr was a judge. He said, "Hey, can you make a proclamation that what I did wasn't illegal?" And Barr told him no. I mean, that's pretty naive.
Wanted him to have a press conference.
Isn't that?
Well, you don't know how. A lot of this is ignorance on the part. This guy is basically incompetent. That's really what the problem is. I don't know if he's evil. He's just incompetent.
Well, I don't think he's
Definitely
evil.
Incompetent.
You
think he's evil, huh?
No, I don't think he's evil.
I don't know. I just think he's incompetent.
No, I said that. No, I don't think he's evil. In fact, I think he's probably a decent man who has this notion that he's supposed to be the fighter, and sometimes he's spoiling for a fight where there is none, and he winds up turning off half the country. I'm afraid. But having said this about Barr,
having said you need a good businessman in politics, and they'll straighten everything out.
Not so. I worked for Don Regan, who was the and I worry Don Regan, who was the chief of staff to President Reagan, who famously got pushed out of the White House. And anyone who worked for Don could have known that. Executives who run companies, and I'm sure you know this, but having lived that life for 30 years, they're used to having complete power. And when they want something done, it gets done. Our system is not set up that way. Our system's set up to be ugly and sloppy and slow on purpose.
I used to say, when you were a kid, you ever play that game Telephone?
Yeah, sure.
You would tell one, well, that's it. Now you go out there and you're going to say, I'm going to say this. And then it goes through the newspapers, through the legislators, and it comes out at the other end completely different than when you said it.
Okay, I'm gonna turn you into a shrink now, Andy Spano. You can make a comment on these things, and you give a lot of insight, and you almost even laugh about it in a lighthearted way. Now, I want to know how you do it, so I can do it. I am being honest with you. When I see people like do what some of the far left does too, but what's immediate now is in the news. When what's his name? The guy that said, "Hey, if he does this, it's going to be a problem," and then he says, "Oh, it's all nonsense." When I see that stuff, when I see the president indict the Foreign Service, when I see him indict, and I mean by not literally, but in his proclamations, indict our judges, when I see him indict the intelligence community, it really, really, really bothers me. It keeps me up nights. But you're able to.
Here's the way I see it when I look at it. Scares the hell out of me from the outside. I'm not going to make a joke of this. This is the first time that I've felt in my entire lifetime that the democracy is threatened.
Yeah, me too.
And one of the reasons for it is just what you put on, not Trump, but the reactions of the Republican Party who are in office in Washington. And I'll leave it at that. And their reaction to this whole situation. And it may be that, you have no idea of the infighting in Washington. How brutal that is sometimes. And they're not as far away from it as we are out here looking at this and on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about people who casually get their information. And we're looking at it from a different perspective and coming up with, this great fear we have. And it's not only me. I mean, there are many people in public situations right now that have the same fear. Well, I mean, Can you imagine what would happen if the Supreme Court rules on something and someone says, "I'm not doing that"? They're not in the Constitution to do that.
It just,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing in the Constitution that says they rule against these things.
I don't know, but at least I'm glad to hear you say it. Not that I thought you were taking it all lightly, but how do you manage it? And I'm glad to hear that it troubles you too, because it truly does. One of the reasons I do this is I greatly believe in the democracy we have, and I understand why it's slow moving and why it's sometimes ugly and nasty, and that's American politics, and that's the cost of freedom. But there's this one congressman who I can't stomach anymore. He's the guy who always, his collar's open, and if a guy was in front of him saying, "I just cured cancer for a Democrat," he'd say, "No, you are cancer." What's his name? Jordan.
Jordan, yeah.
Where does it go?
Now, there you are. I had the name before you put it out,
No,
right?
but where does, and I'm sure there are Democrats, where does God make such people that have disregard for the very construct of this country to do that? Where? How? But I think I know. I'm an old organizational guy. I think he sees it as his role. This is what I'm supposed to do. It's like when Cheney said to George Bush, about Scooter Libby, "You left one of our men on the field." Well, yeah, he did, because he broke the law.
Right.
But
Right.
what do you think is in Jim Jordan's head? Do you think it's just that hey, look, I have to do
I
this?
don't know. I think he was a high school wrestling coach. Maybe he banged his head a little. It's really interesting that he stands out that much. That when you describe the behavior, I came up with the name.
And I know that's the job, but it used to be done a little bit more gentlemanly. But it's, who knows? I don't know. I certainly didn't solve the plan. Hey, listen, before you go, another couple.
One thing is you got to look at the system and see if the system's broken yet. And it isn't. It's not yet. It's still working.
I'm not sure.
It's still working. What you're looking at here are really protocols that have gone on for years, that have been developed, and they're not being followed right now. But up until the Nixon administration, the Attorney General was the lawyer he acted for the president.
Right.
Remember Mitchell? No
sure.
one forgets him.
Bobby Kennedy was John's brother, for God's sakes. I get it.
Right. So this is not what we haven't gone through. There's just something different because of the way it's all coming together with all the people that are involved.
Well, I'm going to give you my take.
That's the problem.
I'm going to give you a juxtaposition, and both choices make me sick. Theoretically, if you're in a primary and you don't embrace the AOC, and you're a Democrat, you can't run. Well, this is a premise, a thesis, if you will. And if you don't embrace Jim Jordan, Congressman Jordan. So it's either Jordan or AOC. That's like going to the electric chair and do you want AC or DC current?
And they're basically minor people in their party. But AOC right now is not, she may be publicly out there, and, you got to blame the press for some of this. I mean, she would not be out there unless the press was promoting her. I mean, she's good news.
I'm going to hell. I'm going to hell because she's pretty. I look at that and I say, God,
And let me tell you something. They said that during the 60s about all these hippie dippies that were around, right?
Yeah, I remember.
And yet a lot of what they said, because we heard it,
yes, not
all of it, became what we are now accepting for, everyday situations. Because they brought it to there are people who bring the issue out, and there are people who listen to it, and then there are people who make it happen. They go through it and make the right things happen. So, they serve a purpose.
Okay, Andy Spano, we've got to go. I think we've solved the planet. I really appreciate all your time, and I always do appreciate your good humor as well. Thank you so very, very much. Andy Spano, former county executive, now political analyst. Thank you, sir.
Take care.
All right, take care. and I've got to get ready for my next guest. It is 9 o'clock, and as we head into our final segment of the program, I want to remind you that tomorrow, and I don't know the time we're going to do it yet, probably about 8:50, but tomorrow we will hear from Jake. This week's football picks, they'll be brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection including Arturo Fuente, Padrones, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located at 204 Boston Post Road, Larchmont, New York. They're open 7 days. The upcoming hour is also supported by Aging Issues Management and Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Pena and Khan, a plug-in virtual reality, and the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhdc.com. And another look at the weather brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. It is 48 now, slowly climbing up towards the 58, the topper. We will have rain today. That will be tonight, cloudy with rain late in the day. The temperature will be 55 degrees tonight, but we will have a mixture of snow and clouds, and it'll get down to 30, snow and rain, pardon me. Now, Friday, mostly sunny skies. The temperature will get up to 38, so hopefully the snow, if it accumulates at all, will melt. Saturday, a nice day. Mostly cloudy skies. The high will be 42. The overnight low, 32 degrees. Sunny on Sunday, a high of 52 as it warms up. Now, you keep hearing, Jake, about this big freeze that's coming. You're not really going to feel the big freeze until Wednesday, when there may have been some snow the day before or not. They're not sure, but it's going to be 42, so whatever we have is going to melt. But it's getting down Wednesday night to 22, double deuce. And so that's what's going on with the weather. And tomorrow we have a great show planned for you with some additions. Of course, Jake will be back with his picks of the week. He's becoming an investment. You'll want to listen in to that. Also, as we do every Friday, we'll talk with Dr. Victor Sternberg. Hezi Harris with his Yonkers report will be with him. Janelle Albritton will give us some of the fallout from the election in her city, in Mount Vernon. Sean Patterson Howard, who will be joining us momentarily, we believe. We did sign her up. So I'm going to check my phone because we kept that line busy. And I don't even know where I put my phone. It gets very busy back here, folks. You have no idea. Did you see my phone, Jake? Did I drop it? We use that as an emergency note. Nope, nobody's there. I need a longer thumb. Oh, let's see, 8:53. Oh, someone did call. All righty. There we go. Thank you, Jake. Someone around here has to have a brain, and it's not me. All right, let's make that phone call. I see that. I'm beginning to love all these new systems. I'm still getting used to them, as you see. By the way, I keep being asked, and I will let you know when the train station and the Radio Westchester grand opening is going to be. That has to be coordinated with the city, so we're not quite sure yet when that will be. But we do expect to have that coming up soon, and then after that, expand the program. You'll hear from a lot more sponsors and so forth. So anyway, we are calling now the aforementioned mayor-elect of Mount Vernon. So I just got to press some buttons here while I talk. It's actually not as easy as you think it might be. And no, if that's 3 numbers, that's good. All right, here we go. Oh, someone's calling us. Well. Come on. We're having a little bit of computer trouble now. They're here, but I can't accept it. All right. Nobody's accepting the call. Line 1, okay. It's unavailable. There's a little smile face on my screen. We're still waiting to get a hold of Sean Patterson Howard here. Let's see what happened. We got to check the text. He and with a hey, and no text. Maybe a call, no call. So we're going to call her Sean Patterson Howard. See the way we do that? I have it right on my phone here. And all right, we'll wait for that call. We've got a couple of minutes, and we tried to call. So what you going to do? They called a little bit early, and sometimes they do that. But we did not hear. I did not hear the phone, and we had them calling in on the hotline. Anyway. Sean Patterson Howard, who we'll give another couple of minutes to before we move on. Sean Patterson Howard won with 80% of the vote. And as George Latimer and others have said, when you win the Democratic primary in New York, particularly in Mount Vernon, where 80% of the people are Democrats, you're pretty much a shoo-in. And despite a near heroic effort by Andre Wallace, he was unable to compromise that. He was unable to change that. So this is Radio Westchester. We're going to open up the phones for a little while. 914-222-3141. 914-222-3141. We don't want to take a leave too early, but we will. We're not going to just sit here and jabber. That's not the nature of this hour. And being that it's a podcast, we will take an early leave, but that is not the case. I do hope that the elected officials who were listening, I do hope that we somehow reached those of you who work for or that are subject to the kinds of nonprofits that we were talking about and the kinds of scandals that exist there, because they are spending your money. And I can't stress enough the extent to which we're going to try and call now on this line if we can. So let's see if we can get Sean Patterson Howard here. Hi, Sean. I just wanted to be sure you were still coming on. You want us to call you on this line? We'll do that. We'll be right to you. See, folks, it works. This is coming to you live, not on film. Okay, so what we're going to do, we can't share that number with you guys, so look at this. We have a telephone. All right. Now, normally, folks, in the weeks ahead, we'll have somebody actually doing this separately, and you won't see me do it. And the phone is ringing. Hope I dialed the right number. Hi, there you are, Sean. Stay right there. All righty, we arranged it right in front of you. That's called producing. Now, the way I was taught radio, oh, God, don't let people see what's behind the scenes. But one of the cool things about this is you get a chance to see, and that's what happens. Now, ordinarily, if we don't know who that is, but that's not who we need to talk to. So ordinarily, what we would do, is have someone behind the scenes do that. You'd never see it. We'd play a commercial, and we'll do those kinds of things down the road. But one of the things we wanted to do in this podcast, series of podcasts, and this series of streaming is let you see what's involved. So nonetheless, with us right now is the mayor-elect, I guess we should call her, in Mount Vernon, 80% of the vote. Please welcome Sean Patterson Howard. Good morning, Mayor-elect. How are you?
I'm fine, Bob. How are you doing?
Pretty good. What was it like? What was it like when you saw the numbers come in?
Well, look, honestly, it still hasn't hit me. I'm a workaholic, and so I saw the numbers. I understood I won, but what that meant for me was it wasn't time to celebrate. It was really time to start working, and so I immediately went into work mode and focusing on what I needed to do to prepare for January 1st. So I've started having meetings around transition and with a lot of focus on what we need to do to become involved in the budgeting process, as that's the budget that I will inherit.
It is the budget that you will inherit, but I wanted to get into some even more specific things, or actually more general things. You famously after you won the primary, I do believe you went out and even had 2 knee surgeries, did you not? Or was that hip
Yes.
surgery?
Yes, I had a knee replacement on August 14th and a second knee replacement on August 21st.
So you're working on new wheels, for God's sakes, and you came right back and started knocking on doors. How long did it take you to recover from that, Mayor-elect?
Well, I walked around very gingerly, even with the staples still in my knees, and I was back on the campaign trail physically within 8 days of my surgery. Within 8 days of my surgery, and after that, I was back in knocking doors and doing events within 2 weeks.
That actually
So
that says a lot about the quality of knee surgeries these days, doesn't it?
Well, definitely, it says something about the quality of knee surgeries, but also I'm the type of person who will push through pain.
Oh yeah,
and I think that's what women do. We usually don't have the luxury as mothers and as wives to kind of sit around and recover and heal. We have to get back up and take care of the children, take care of the home, go to work, and continue to do the things that we do as leaders in the community. And so when I could barely walk and walked slowly, I just moved around and got a little extra help and continued to do what was necessary. I didn't want to leave anything to chance, Bob. This election meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to the future of Mount Vernon. And I did not believe that I had time to waste to just sit around and recuperate leisurely.
No, you touched a nerve with me. My mom worked 42 years and missed 2 days of work. But the only 2 days she missed was, when you have the kind of food poisoning where you literally can't stand up? 2 days of work, 42 years. She went in with broken bones, post surgeries, eye surgeries. She'd go to work with a patch on one eye. She could barely see out of the other one. That is an interesting thing you mentioned. But let's get down to the cases of, okay, you win the primary. You now win the election handily, I wanted to say landslide, but really a mandate. What's the first thing you're going to do when you walk into that office in January?
The first thing that I'm going to do when I walk into the office in January is I'm really going to call an all-staff meeting. I'm going to call an all-staff meeting, at least of my commissioners and deputies and appointed staff, so that we can really get focused on the next steps. I want to sit with them and lay out the strategic plan, help align our different departments and leaders, and start making assignments. I'm already having meetings with different commissioners right now so that we can start ramping up. Day one for me started on June 26th was day one for me.
Really did, after the primary. You had said, one of my last interviews with Andre Wallace, and you having one, I get a chance to vet this. He had mentioned, as you did when you came on during the campaign, that you can't close the books without an audit. And Mayor Wallace said, well, I did close the books and I am auditing. Is that, and I know you don't want to dump on someone you just defeated. It's not magnanimous. I'm talking about process.
Disrespect.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
When you don't have look, I'm an executive leader. I've been an executive leader. I have a lot of knowledge of finances and how finances operate and best systems for financial management. And, there might be people who run companies, but if they don't become engaged and involved in the financial management of those companies, they just won't understand.
That's why I did subscribe to what you said, but I was surprised when he said that he closed the books when I challenged him with that. And he said the audits were getting done. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because one of the things you committed to here on these airwaves is you will get those audits done. And I know that resonated with me and I'm sure voters as well.
Absolutely. I know that in the Board of Water Supply, they are finishing up and waiting for the report to come in on the 2017 audit, and they are audit ready for 2018, and clearly we have to finish out 2019. But Mr. Spruill, who is the water commissioner, is a former comptroller, and he's very knowledgeable
Oh, well, that's good.
around financial management and processes. And so in, the past 7-8 weeks, he's been able to really get the water department up to speed and has spent a lot of time and energy focused on and completing those audits. Commissioner Morton, who from Recreation is doing working planning right now, he is a very competent administrator, and he too is working on getting the books ready for audits and preparing that process. So I am having conversations with people and getting updates as I can.
You're not even getting a
on what's
paycheck
happening.
yet, Mayor-elect. We're talking with Mayor-elect in Mount Vernon, Sean Patterson Howard. A lot of people are talking about the fact that it's history, the first woman mayor, and obviously the first African-American woman mayor, but not only one, but one with 80% of the vote. And it's everybody agrees you've got a tough job ahead, but you seem to relish it.
Oh, I like a challenge. I love a challenge. I love a complex puzzle and looking at how you dissect it, how you move around the pieces to make them fit together to create a masterpiece. I have no fantasy about how difficult this is going to be, but that's what excites me about it.
Yeah,
I'm like a beaver who will just scratch constantly at the dam until it breaks. Because that hard work, I'm not afraid of hard work. What I've come to understand in all of my jobs is the harder that you have to work, the greater reward when you're able to break through and start seeing results. I think as a social worker, I always lean towards very tough and complex cases that people ran away from.
And go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Continue, Mayor-elect.
And then when I saw things turn around in their life, it was incredible because you knew the type of time and effort that it took for you and them to put into this and make it change. There are a lot of people who look for easy fixes and, low-hanging fruit, but I'm the type of person that likes to dig deep all the way until we hit, bedrock and then start putting in the shores and the foundation that we need to build something significant. So I look for significance in work and not quick wins.
Sean Patterson Howard is with us. She's the mayor-elect of Mount Vernon, having won yesterday, 2 days ago actually now, with 80% of the vote. I went out on a limb and I had an easy time doing it. We got, there are some of your detractors, and not that there were a whole lot, but they would say, boy, she really explains these things well. She can articulate. She can talk. She's like a rapper. She gets it. She can put it together. But can she do the job? And I defended you because one of the things that I learned when I was in business, and I want to run this by you, if you can't think through the possible solution, if you can't articulate it and then state it on either paper or in a speech, you can't do what you can't explain. You can't do it. And so now, again, it could turn out that you're a good communications expert, but not a good doer. But I know for just my own experience, you've got to be able to articulate it to do it. So it was just a notion that was brought up. I was trying to find out where, with what's a weak spot, and that's what people mentioned, that you really, you talk the quote good game. But I said, well, you have to talk a game in order to do it. So.
Well, I've run under-resourced organizations for years. Mm-hmm. And I'm a president and CEO, but did not have a chief operating officer, didn't have an HR director, didn't have a senior program director. And it was myself and my CFO who really worked to do a lot of the grunt work. And when you're under-resourced, it's like a person who runs a mom-and-pop corner store or deli. You have to shop for the food. You have to bring the food into the store. You have to cook it. You have to prepare it. You're cleaning the store. You're the cashier. You're the bookkeeper. You have to do all of the aspects of running that operation. And so if someone all of a sudden wants to hire you to run a supermarket, people would often say, well, they only ran a bodega. They can't run a supermarket. But of course you can, because now you have staff and resources in place to help you do something
Ergo-
that for a long time you had to do by yourself.
And ergo, the ability to articulate what you want each individual area to do and set standards and have that all integrated into a plan is part of what an executive does.
Exactly.
And so I'm rooting for you, if that makes any sense, Sean Patterson Howard.
Thank you.
And two
You know,
things.
it's
Go
been a
ahead.
great trail. I believe that our desire to run a clean campaign, to stay focused on the issues and not on the personalities, and not to get down into the mud when people threw mud at us, is something that resonated. Back in June, we put out a newsletter, which I had shared with you, and it had our plan and the different areas and the initiatives that we wanted to approach for taxes, infrastructure, human services, recreation, seniors, adult, economic development. And we had put that plan in place. And once we won the primary, we immediately went out and started drilling down on that plan and having meetings and developing relationships and finding the resources that we would need to start to implement that plan. And so that's the work that we did between the primary and the general election, and we continued to articulate and make, provide more details to the community and pull residents in to be partners with us on this journey. I really think that's what made the difference. So many people would tell me as they saw me on the street, don't worry about the stuff they're putting on social media. They made lit drops comparing me to
Yeah,
Trump.
I've seen some of them. Yeah, I saw that.
It was just incredible stuff. And I think the last one, on Election Day itself, they had people that they placed who were poll watchers or who were working at the polls,
Yeah, I heard.
who actually told people that I lived in Yonkers. They said she lived in Yonkers. She broke a lease in 2017. She doesn't have the residency requirements to run for mayor. We're going to take her to court and overturn it.
You know what?
And
You're just no good, Sean Patterson Howard.
I guess that's the biggest lesson for me, that you could work and do good work for many years and even decades.
No, doesn't matter.
But as soon as you step into that political arena, people will find ways to demonize you and make stuff up. But you just have to stay focused. And
you're so right.
I tell people, I tell people I'm the thermostat. I'm going to set the temperature. I'm not going to be the thermometer and respond to the environment. I'm going to set the environment.
Mayor-elect, and this is to be fair to President Trump, President Obama, county executives, governors, you now. If you cured cancer, the opposition would say you had a cynical reason for doing it, and you got to run with that. But hey, you know what? It did interest me. I was looking at some of the stuff on social media, and them saying, "Well, she can talk a good game, but can she do it?" I saw where Richard Thomas congratulated you and says he thought you do a good job, and little things like that matter to me. After all he's been through, to come out and say that. Some people might have been expected to say, "Hope you fail, goodbye," but he didn't, and that must have surprised you too, no?
Well, I actually, so I had not slept until about 11:30 yesterday evening.
Yeah.
I came back from our watch party and celebration. I got home at about 1 a.m, and I just sat and spoke with my husband. And of course, you're excited and you're a little hyped, and as tired as you are, you just can't sleep. So he went to sleep, and I started answering text messages, and I'd gotten through about 200 of them by about 4 a.m, and I saw something from News 12 wanting an interview, and that started a day of interviews throughout the day in transition meetings. And I've been working on answering about 800 text messages.
Oh, my God.
So I'm just trying to respond to text messages. I'm afraid to go on Facebook because the notifications are just so numerous. I didn't get a chance to go on Facebook.
No, but you should know that he said that.
Change my profile picture. So I heard that he put that. I will be going on Facebook probably over the weekend to go back and respond, because I believe if people take out a moment to congratulate me, I like to give a personal response. And that's what I'm doing with text messages and emails.
Well, you did that with us too,
meetings.
because I figured you had a million texts, and when we texted you yesterday, you got right back and said you'd love to come on, and we really appreciate it. Sean Patterson Howard, we're going to keep it for another few minutes, and then she probably needs a lot of rest to get to her emails. But as you look forward now, of all the things that you kind of understand in terms of you've worked for the city before and you've been through a tough campaign now. What troubles you the most? What are you gonna? There's always the first thing you'll do, but what's the biggest problem that you're concerned about?
Look, Mount Vernon has a lot of problems that through work and focus you can change. I think the biggest thing that we have to tackle is the culture of government and restoring the confidence of the community in government. That's not as easy.
No.
It's almost like if a person breaks a bone, you can set it, put it in a cast, and it heals. But when you pull a muscle or you strain a muscle, it takes longer, and it's not as clear as to what you need to do to fix it. People think breaking a bone is the tough thing. But no, it's tearing a muscle or having a bad pinched nerve.
Oh, Linda, it's so true. It's true.
So clearing up audits, completing Memorial Field, dealing with the sewers, those are things that you create the steps, you work through them, you deal with it. That's very tactical work and practical work.
Well,
changing a culture of a community and changing perception is something that just takes a lot more maneuvering and a lot more hand-holding in relationship
But Mayor-elect, doesn't it also, this is my own efforts that have changed corporate cultures at times, a lot of it, too, has to do with the little things, like getting back to people who call, making it easy to come to City Hall and acquire a service, treating every call equally. Those are things that a good executive can make happen.
And that's why we have a plan to create an Office of Constituent Services.
Cool.
For many years, even when I worked in City Hall back in the late 90s when Mayor Davis came in, he would send a lot of constituents up to my office because we were dealing with health and human service issues and senior and youth issues, and he sent a lot of people to me. But that wasn't my job, or even Miss Atkins when she was the Deputy Commissioner of Recreation because she'd been in DSS for many years. She did those things. So there were always point people in the building that you could send constituents to take care of things. But there has not been one central office in City Hall where you send people to address an issue and they, kind of like United Way.
No, I get it.
311.
No, I get it.
You log these issues, these complaints, you track them, and like a traffic cop, you send them in the direction, but then you follow up to make sure that it was resolved.
Oh, yeah. That's
So
huge.
that's
And any good
follow-up.
business does that. And of course now we have voicemail. And I hate it because a bad customer service rep lets stuff go to voicemail. I used to have this rule. I ran a customer service group for Merrill on my way up. If the phone rings a third time, somebody's in a lot of trouble, and it's not your phone you pick. And that has to stop. I remember, with all due respect, Ernie Young was a nice Mayor Young was a nice guy. I think I said Ernie, but I meant Clinton. I liked him personally, but I remember calling City Hall and nobody picked up the phone during his administration. And that, you just can't have that. I'm sure it hasn't been like that recently either. The one thing I could say about Richard Thomas is when he was there and now Andre is when you call, they pick up. But that is in the extreme of the problem. But to get people to get back to your citizens, that restores faith, I think.
So we will have an Office of Constituent Services. We will have a mayor's hotline. And I'm looking to house that office with 2 people primarily. And the 2 people would focus on 4 major areas. That's outreach and partnership with the faith-based community. Mount Vernon has a lot of churches. Our churches have a lot of space. People say, well, you're trying to prophesy to people. No. Churches have a lot of space, and churches are interested in doing a lot of social programs. In Mount Vernon, we only have the Armory and the Dole Center, and 95% of that space is already committed. So we have to partner with the churches so that we can utilize their space for after-school programming, family programming, senior programming, financial literacy workshops, academic enrichment, physical exercise, health education, job training. And so we really want to work close with the churches on space utilization and program development. We want to work with the school system. I'm not the superintendent, but I'm an advocate for education, and the school districts money comes straight from the taxpayers in Mount Vernon. And so we have to make sure we have a partnership with the school district and that we're creating a culture of education and literacy within the community to support the academic outcomes of our young people. Then we also want to work with the not-for-profit organizations. And that's critical because tens of millions of dollars come into Mount Vernon annually through these organizations, through Medicare and Medicaid and federal, state, and county funding. But the city has never kept their finger on the pulse of whether or not the organizations were delivering what they promised to deliver for how they're funding. So we want to have some level of not necessarily oversight, but partnership, because the mayor usually has to sign off on their application. And I say they come to you and they ask you to sign off on an application, but they're not coming back to you and reporting how they performed on the actual contract. So if you're getting $1 million to provide after-school programming to our kids, I want to understand what the outcomes are. Because if you're not successful in the outcomes, then either the community is going to lose the money, or we might need to look to another organization who might be better equipped to provide those services.
And as you know, Mayor-elect, we did a story this morning about money that was supposed to be used for preschoolers, $80 million, and a lot of it was siphoned off by the people that run it. And so that kind of oversight is really needed because human beings, if they get a chance to cheat, unfortunately often do.
Mount Vernon has the statistics that organizations love. We have high poverty, we have low academic outcomes, we have high rates of disease, mental illness, things of that nature, and so many organizations have a headquarters outside of Mount Vernon and might have 4 or 5 different offices they provide services out of. And I have witnessed for myself where organizations would use Mount Vernon's statistics and data to get money, but the percentage of the money that should come back to our community doesn't.
Yeah.
It helps to fuel the corporate office and some of their other offices. So if you're using our data to get money, I want to make sure that if 80% of the money is supposed to come to Mount Vernon to provide services for our residents, that 80% comes to Mount Vernon and not 60%. We cannot allow money that is allocated for our community to float around and support other communities. We have a lot of issues. We need to make sure that we have the resources that we're supposed to have to do them.
Equally, and we're talking with Sean Patterson Howard, the mayor-elect of Mount Vernon. There was a piece in the paper the other day, and we did speak with Andre Wallace a little bit about it, but was this statistic that New York City has been sending a lot of whether they're mentally ill or other people in need of certain services, been sending them to Mount Vernon, Yonkers, White Plains. I'm sure you're aware of this. Is this something that you're concerned about, and what do you think we can do about it?
Actually, the story does not say that they're sending homeless families or families who've been in the homeless system. So here in Westchester, because I've worked in human services and housing for a long time, there are families in the homeless system who are fully dependent on government.
Yes.
And then there are families who are in the homeless system who work, but are the working poor and don't have enough money sometimes to sustain the increased levels of the increased housing expenses. And so this program only gives rent assistance to people who are working. These are working families. They might be the working class poor or lower middle class, and they give money to them. These are families that are supposed to be stable, and they provide a boost to help them get on their feet fully. So these are not your mentally ill,
okay, that's good.
Drug addicted. These are much more stable families. But these are much more stable.
But is
families.
it true that they're sending them to Mount Vernon and places like that so that New York doesn't have to manage it?
Well, because they can't afford the rents, and they send them to communities where rents are lower. And guess what? We do the same thing here in Westchester, because we'll send people to Connecticut or other communities in New Jersey with stipends that come out of Westchester because, people have done it. They used to send people to Mount Vernon because rents were cheaper in Mount Vernon. And now rents are high in Mount Vernon, and we'll say, we'll give you $1,500 a month. as a stipend, but you're not going to be able to find an apartment in Mount Vernon for $1,500 a month, and so you might want to go to Connecticut. You can get more for your money.
You see, it always pays to talk to people who know and get the a different perspective and a more accurate perspective. We'll send you on your way. Is there anything that you want to Go ahead. Go ahead, May.
You know, while I understand that, we still have to track it. And so when I saw the story come out, I absolutely contacted our county Department of Social Services, and they are aware of some of the families who have come over, just like people in New York City have used their Section 8 vouchers for years to move to Westchester County, and people have used their Section 8 county vouchers from Westchester to move to Georgia and North Carolina. They call them portability. But they said that the families that have come, there have been a few of them who have become homeless again, and they've returned to New York City. We also have to look at not just, if they become homeless, how are the kids performing in school and what's happening with our tax dollars in the school. So this is something that we're tracking. I don't want to use it as a sensational issue. I'm a problem solver, so I want to have a meeting with New York City government and make sure that they're being respectful and they're not dumping their problems in our community. We have our own homeless, we have our own mentally ill, and we have to find resources to take care of them. We don't need to become the dumping ground for New York, for New York City, but I'm not going to just people like to sensationalize some issues, and I think that's what happened with this.
Mayor-elect, you've certainly shed a lot of light on that. I want to give you a chance, Sean Patterson Howard, let you get some rest. Take this moment to talk to the city of Mount Vernon, and take this next couple of minutes. You've already run. You've already won. Now, as mayor-elect, take a couple of minutes, talk to the city. What do you want to tell them? And by the way, before you even do that, we will continue to give you time here every week as your run-up and once you're in office. And when you have breaking stories, and what I mean by this is announcements to make, we will make these microphones available to you to get the word out to your city.
Thank you so much.
You can count on that. Anyway, I
want to say to my beloved residents of Mount Vernon that I'm so excited and I'm humbled and I'm grateful for the level of support that they came out on Election Day and have given me. As I've walked around the community yesterday and even this morning, the people have come up to me and just expressed that they have hope. I've told them that I am here to work for them, but more importantly, I'm here to work with them. The level of involvement that we saw with people coming out to town hall meetings, we want to see that continue. We want the community to understand that we want them to be educated on the issues so that they can feel more comfortable being involved. We want to engage them in solving the issues of our community, and we want them to feel empowered to be our partners and work in Mount Vernon. This is not just about government. Government cannot solve the problems of the community. Government can help cast a vision, but we have to work with our residents, our businesses, our neighborhood associations, our faith institutions, our school district, to really turn our community around. I don't want them to become disengaged now that the election is over. I want them to become engaged even more. Campaigning is over, but governance, problem solving, and a new day is beginning, and we absolutely need their partnership and support, as well as their criticism in making sure that Mount Vernon goes in a new direction and that what we create together is not just for photo ops and good news stories, but it's sustainable transformation that we will feel for generations to come. What we do in the next few years will plot the trail and the path of Mount Vernon for the next generations of our family. And we want to make sure that we do it right. But importantly, we want to make sure that we do it together. It's critical that all people are involved and that we do not push people away from the table because they may not look like us or they don't agree with us or they may not have the right education or pedigree. Everyone has good ideas, and we want to make sure that people have real opportunities to be involved.
Well, I think you've said it all, and I want to thank you once again. But most importantly, I want to congratulate you on your very solid win, your mandate to govern in Mount Vernon. Sean Patterson Howard, she is the mayor-elect of Mount Vernon, the next mayor of Mount Vernon. We wish you the very, very best of luck. We'll talk to you again next week, and get a good time for you. That we realize you may not be able to give us the hour that you did when you were campaigning, but. If you need to get the word out, and as you need to get the word out, we'll be here for you. But the very best to you, and good luck. It's a tough job, but you seem ready for it.
Thank you, Bob. I'm excited, and I look forward to continuing to speak with you and get the word out and also get your insight, because I appreciate the insight that you share.
Well, thank you very much. And listen, good luck to you, and we'll talk to you soon. Sean Patterson Howard, everyone, the big winner in the elections 2 days ago. Let's take a look at where we're going. We know some people were trying to get through. We'll take a couple of calls if you're out there. 914-222-3141, 222-3141. We do want to give you a last hit on the weather. We call it hits here in this business. It is... it's getting up to 55. It is 49 right now. It will get up to 55, maybe even 58 today. It is cloudy with rain scheduled late in the day, or forecast, we should say. The temperature will be 55, like I say, 55 to 58. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a mix of snow and rain. The temperature 30 degrees. Wind out of the northwest, 10 to 20 miles an hour. It'll be sunny tomorrow, but it'll be cold, 38 degrees, not quite freezing, so it shouldn't be too bad. Wind again out of the northwest, 15 to 25. Saturday, mostly sunny skies, getting up to 42. The overnight low, though, 32, gets a little colder. And then on Sunday, partly sunny, a high of 52 degrees, the overnight low 39. And as far as all that you have heard about the frigid days to come, it really doesn't come till next Wednesday. Now, Tuesday there would have been periods of rain, maybe some snow, but it will get up to 42 and at night 26. But Wednesday, 37 degrees during the day, 22 at night Thursday, and we're only taking you out there because we know you're concerned about the frigid weather coming. It'll be 27 on Thursday, but 22 on Wednesday. It's amazing that they can forecast so specifically, but they do, and generally they're pretty much on the money. And that weather was brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. This interview was also supported by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, plug-in virtual reality, and of course, Dominic's Fine Cigars. Now, tomorrow you'll be hearing from Jake. He is a walking investment. He's 9-4 on Jake's picks. Tomorrow, those picks will be brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Padrons, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located at 204 Boston Post Road in Larchmont. They're open 7 days. I want to thank the callers this morning. We heard from Lorraine, Anthony Galetta, thank you so much. George Latimer came to visit us at 7:20. John Bailey was in the house today. Martha Lopez, the big winner here in New Rochelle in District 1, unseating a 12-year incumbent Republican councilman. Andy Spano arrived in good humor, as he generally always does. And Sean Patterson Howard. Once again, looking at tomorrow, we will speak with our friends from Mount Vernon. Actually, it's now the Westchester Post out of Mount Vernon, but they also have a version that's located specifically in Mount Vernon, the Mount Vernon Post. Janelle Albritton, the managing editor, her sports guy, generally likes to stop by to tell us what's going on in that city. Dr. Victor Sternberg will join us tomorrow. He, from the long-standing radio show, Politics and Your Health, and we will get now. We had a report from him the other day from Hezi Harris vis-a-vis the election, but tomorrow we'll get his full Yonkers report. A couple of other people we've invited on tomorrow. We'd like to get the final version of Vince's conversion to religion after spending years as a pagan. We've been following his, and I said that tongue-in-cheek, as an agnostic, really. And he actually spoke to his church congregation, Jake, for the first time last week. And we want to find out what he said, if he was booed off the, if he was bowled off the pulpit or not. So we're looking forward to that tomorrow and into a new week. Thank you so much for listening. It's 9:44. We're going to get out a little early today, take care of some business and things of that nature. Now, again, as we look forward, we should hear from the city any day about when our grand opening is. And we will firm up some of the work we're doing with some of our sponsors and our new programs. Next week, we will be debuting, and we'll tell you when it is, podhockey.com. We've reached out to our first couple of guests, and our guest will be, one guest that we will make sure we have on first will be Hall of Famer Joe Mullen from New York City, from the very west side, and if the schedule permits, because his brother does a different kind of work. His brother Brian Mullen played for the New York Rangers, and we'll be talking about what it was like to grow up in New York and go on to play professional hockey, when so many of us who played in and around the city in those years thought it would be an impossible dream. Also, Aging Issues Radio will be back on next week, and a couple of other big surprises coming up for you. And we are in the midst of planning an evening show for the evening drive time as well. So you stay with us, and we'll be hearing more from Jake and some of the other people that are we're ready to hire here at the radio station to make this your radio station. This is Radio Westchester. This is the conclusion of Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. I'm still thinking of changing the name. I don't know. The placard looks good. We have already marketed it as Mornings with Marrone, but still, we may change that. We are the station at the station. And we can be reached for advertising, and you'll be getting more data about that coming up at 914-727-2726. Now, if you're interested in advertising, and I had this conversation with a client yesterday, and it did work, interested in advertising with us, and I said, but you really have to come and see it. And Jake, it works every time. When they come and see it, because of where we're located and how many people walk by it and how visible we are, it closes the deal every time. So if you're interested in advertising, remember that your business's name will be on an electronic billboard outside of this radio station, where every single person that parks, almost everyone that gets dropped off, every single person that takes the bus here or comes down from North Avenue, they have to walk by 5 windows before they get to the... Pardon?
Shades won't be drawn?
No, they won't be drawn. We left them down today because of the weather, and it was freezing in here. But otherwise, we leave it. But I forgot to turn on the heat last night. But we will. We always leave them open, and it's bright as daytime in here. So thank you so much for listening. We're going to get out a little early. This is Radio Westchester, and we will see you tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock.